Chapter 1807. I object. The Grand Shaman of Meng Mountain let out a deep roar, instantly attracting countless gazes. A commotion broke out in the ancestral court. Silence! The black-robed Grand Shaman shouted. He leaned forward, and his eyes were filled with oppression. Meng Shan, you were ordered to guard the western border. Who allowed you to return to the ancestral court? Humph! The Grand Shaman of Meng Mountain sneered. I am a Grand Shaman of the Shaman tribe. I only need to obey the orders of the barbarian sovereign. Since when does the ancestral court have the qualifications to restrict us Grand Shamans? His gaze swept across. Everyone, is it because Meng Mountain has not returned for many years that the ancestral court has gained more authority? There was silence. The eyes of the great sorcerers surged, and many of them revealed delight. They were also dissatisfied with the increasingly aggressive attitude of the ancestral court in recent years. However, the throne of the barbaric emperor was vacant, and the ancestral court was temporarily in charge. In addition, the black-clothed great shaman lineage had many powerful experts and were powerful. They had long taken control of the ancestral court. No one dared to rashly pick a fight with them. The black-robed great shaman's face was as dark as still water. He raised his scepter and said, Meng Shan, I am in charge of the ancestral court and can temporarily replace the barbarian sovereign's authority. Do you have any objections? The great shaman of Mount Meng said, Yes. He lifted his hand and pointed. Terraflame is a great shaman of the barbarian tribe. According to the rules of the barbarian tribe, only His Majesty, the barbarian sovereign, has the right to decide his life and death. Xian Yi, even if you control the ancestral court, you're still not the barbarian emperor. Killing the Grand Shaman is a blasphemy to the barbarian emperor's authority. The scepter in the hands of the black-robed Grand Shaman burst out with light. I, the black-robed Grand Shaman, as the ruler of the ancestral court, pronounce that the Grand Shaman of Meng Mountain has disrespected the ancestral court. He shall be imprisoned in the Black Prison for 300 years. The expressions of the other Grand Magi in the ancestral court changed. Someone stood up. Great Sorcerer Blackrobe, Meng Shan did not commit any obvious crimes. Your punishment is a little too severe. That's right. Every single great shaman of the barbarian tribe is the pillar of the tribe. How can they be severely punished because of some groundless problems? Black-robed great shaman, please retract your order. Today, Meng Shan was punished, but in the future they might be punished as well. The black-robed Grand Magus sneered. All of you are willing to support Meng Shan. In other words, how dissatisfied are you with me ruling the ancestral court? Everyone's expression changed slightly. Boom the scepter's light erupted. The entire barbarian ancestral court was activated at this moment. Deep rumbling sounds came from the depths of the mountain. An invisible suppressive force descended and enveloped all the great magi. Black-clothed great shaman, what are you doing? A great shaman roared in shock and anger. The black-robed Grand Magus was expressionless. Today, I will use the power of the ancestral court to suppress the heretics among the Grand Magi and establish the status and authority of the ancestral court. His cold eyes swept across the crowd. The throne of the barbarian emperor is empty, and the barbarian tribe is without a leader. This is the main reason why we are being suppressed and hunted by the desolate. I want to revive the berserkers, and I want the ancestral court to have absolute control over the entire berserkers. I will definitely kill the Earth-Fire Grand Magus. Meng Shan has spoken rudely and will definitely be punished severely. If anyone else has any objections, do so now. There was dead silence. The great shamans of the barbarian race in the ancestral court were furious. They suddenly understood that the purpose of today's trial assembly was not to kill the Grand Magus of the earthly fire, but to use this opportunity to establish the ancestral court's absolute rule over them. From then on, the great wizard was no longer aloof. The ancestral court controlled everything. No one was willing, but who dared to object? This was the ancestral court. The black-clothed great shaman who held a scepter was a nearly invincible existence. Not to mention, the black-clothed great shaman had controlled the ancestral court for many years. The silence and cold gazes of the surrounding ancestral court guards were enough to explain everything. Suppressed by the power of the ancestral court, their strength was limited. Even if they fell out with the ancestral court, they would only be suppressed. There was silence. Very good. The black-clothed great shaman revealed a satisfied expression. Since everyone agrees, then these two decisions will take effect immediately. Wait a moment. Qin Yu walked into the ancestral court and looked at the great shaman of Mengshan. Look, in the end, we still have to face him head-on, right? The great shaman of Mengshan bitterly smiled. Yes. The black-clothed great shaman frowned. Who are you? A trace of surprise appeared in his eyes, because at this moment he was shocked to discover that the power of the ancestral court could not suppress this person's aura. Or, to be more precise, they felt awe. They did not dare to approach the person in front of them. Instead, they revealed a nearly submissive attitude. This was the first time such a situation had occurred. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves, and the suppressive power of the ancestral court retreated like the tide. The grand magi gathered here widened their eyes in shock. Facing the gazes of the crowd, Qin Yu walked forward towards the black-clothed great shaman. Stop! The black-clothed great shaman suddenly panicked, and the scepter in his hand lit up. But at this moment, Qin Yu glanced over, and the scepter in his hand extinguished. Who are you? The black-clothed great shaman roared. Qin Yu said indifferently, Mengshan. The great shaman of Mengshan, who had regained his freedom, took a deep breath and looked around. Everyone, the person you see today is the new emperor of the barbarians. His words were earth-shattering. Ancestral court, when it was chaos. The great shamans stood up abruptly, and their eyes widened in shock. Barbarian emperor. The black-clothed great shaman's pupils constricted as he roared, Nonsense! If you are the new emperor of the barbarians, how could the ancestral court not sense it? No, I recognize you. You are the heaven-splitting sword sex Qin Yu. He raised his scepter. Mengshan, how dare you bring an outsider into the ancestral court? This is a serious crime of colluding with the enemy. That's right. He is indeed the heaven-splitting sword sex Qin Yu. I have seen his image. But why can he directly repel the suppression power of the ancestral court? Qin Yu said, I am indeed Qin Yu, but at the same time, I am also the new emperor of the barbarians. With these words, the entire ancestral court violently shook. Rumble, rumble, rumble. It was as if a boundless power was about to erupt, but it was forcefully suppressed. Puff! The black-clothed great shaman spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale. But Qin Yu's cold gaze fell on him. Black-clothed great shaman, what a good method. You imprisoned the power of the ancestral court and tried to refine it. Do you want to rebel? Ah! The great shaman cried out in alarm. The black-clothed great shaman angrily shouted, Stop slandering me. I don't know what method you used to restrain the power of the ancestral court, but you dare to pretend to be the barbarian emperor. This is an unforgivable crime. Come, suppress Qin Yu. Boom! Boom! A powerful aura erupted. The 6 great shamans of the ancestral court attacked at the same time. Humph! Qin Yu coldly coughed. The faces of the 6 great shamans paled, and they spat out a mouthful of blood. Mengshan, you have offended me. According to the laws of the barbarians, what is your punishment? The great shaman respectfully said, Reporting to your majesty, your punishment is death. Very good. Qin Yu raised his hand. No, The 6 barbarian great shamans screamed in horror. In the next moment, their heads exploded, red and white blood splashing out. With a single strike, the foundation of the ancestral court that the black-clothed great shaman used to control was instantly wiped out. The black-clothed great shaman's eyes widened. Qi knew, but his heart was filled with fear. He no longer doubted his identity. If it weren't for the barbarian emperor, how could he control the life and death of all the barbarians? With a single strike, he had killed 6 great shamans. Since Qin Yu didn't hesitate to kill the 6 of them, then he could naturally kill him as well. You forced me to do this. The black-clothed great shaman angrily roared. The scepter in his hand shined once more. Barbarian Emperor, Qin Yu is... His voice came to an abrupt end. He was grabbed by the throat by an invisible force and lifted into the air. His face flushed red and his blood vessels bulged. He could no longer make a sound. His eyes widened and turned bloodshot, revealing endless panic. Qin Yu lifted his hand. The scepter struggled for a moment before it howled into his hand. He looked down, his eyes cold. The black-clothed great shaman is indeed worthy of being the existence that controls the ancestral court. In order to become the new barbarian emperor, he is willing to submit to the great Qin. He lifted his hand and grasped. Wisps of aura flew out from the scepter and fell into his hand, constantly struggling. Then these auras violently surged and a face appeared. It was Barbarian Emperor. Qin Yu. He only had time to roar out in shock and anger. Pa! This mass of aura had already been crushed to pieces by Qin Yu. The terrifying pressure that had just descended was forcefully interrupted. Barbarian Emperor! The great shaman roared. Black-clothed, how dare you collude with the great Qin? Do you want to put my barbarian race to death? The other great shamans in the ancestral court were all furious and fearful. If Qin Yu hadn't directly suppressed the black-clothed great shaman today, they would still be in the dark. It wouldn't be long before the barbarians would fall into the hands of the great Qin. The black-clothed great shaman's face was ashen. His eyes were filled with hatred as he stared at Qin Yu. Bang! He was thrown to the ground. Qin Yu stepped over him and walked step by step to the throne of the ancestral court. I am the barbarian emperor. Naturally, only I can sit on this seat. He turned around and sat down. Rumble. The ancestral court, grotto heaven, small world of the barbarians surged. The power of the ancestral court that was sealed underground instantly broke through the seal. They gathered and poured into Qin Yu's body. At this moment, his figure suddenly condensed between heaven and earth. He was like an ancient giant that stood tall. It's His Majesty, the barbarian emperor. Our race's new emperor has succeeded the throne. Greetings, Your Majesty. The great shamans of the ancestral court knelt down excitedly. Countless barbarians in the ancestral court, grotto heaven's small world, also sensed the changes coming from the ancestral court. An old barbarian trembled in excitement and struggled to kneel on the ground. Barbarian Emperor, Barbarian Emperor, our emperor has returned. The black-clothed great shaman stared blankly at the scene in front of him. His body suddenly trembled, and a crazed expression appeared on his face. Qin Yu, so what if you're the new emperor? The ancestral court of the barbarians is controlled by the black-clothed bloodline. Even if you kill me, the black-clothed bloodline will teleport the location of the ancestral court out. When Emperor Qin descends and destroys the ancestral court, all of you will die. The great shaman of Meng Mountain was furious. Shut up, black-clothed great shaman. If you dare to do this, your bloodline will be completely wiped out by the barbarians. The black-clothed great shaman grinned sinisterly. So what if it's wiped out? The black-clothed bloodline has already been destroyed, so let's die together. The great shamans' faces were filled with fear. The black-clothed bloodline had been in charge of the ancestral court for many years and had long infiltrated every corner. No one knew what they had left behind. Even if they didn't hesitate to slaughter and wash the black-clothed bloodline with blood, they still might not be able to eliminate the hidden dangers. And once the location of the ancestral court was truly known by Emperor Qin and he descended, then the barbarians would welcome a calamity. The black-clothed great shaman wildly laughed. He stared at Qin Yu, his face filled with joy. So what if he was the barbarian emperor? And this position was just a little bit away from being his. Since he was going to die, then he would drag everyone down with him. Qin Yu was expressionless. He suddenly said, "Black-clothed, are you surprised that when you faced me just now, you suddenly didn't have the strength to resist?" The black-clothed great shaman's expression froze. Qin Yu said, "It's not because I suppressed you with my status as the barbarian emperor. The true reason is that from many years ago, the life and death of your black-clothed bloodline was no longer in your own hands." Qin Yu lifted his hand. Light surged in his palm, condensing into a contract. In this contract, there were countless bright and dim spots of light. You might not have seen this contract before, but when you see it, your bloodline will tell you what it is. And now this contract has been transferred to my hands. Controlling it is the same as controlling the fate of your bloodline. If I want you to live, you will live. If I want you to die, Qin Yu raised his hand and poked. Ah! With a miserable scream, another great shaman in the hall suddenly exploded and died. And before this, he had never revealed any relationship with the black-clothed bloodline. Even when the two sides were in a state of opposition, this great figure had stood up to speak for the great shaman of Meng Mountain. But now the truth was in front of him. The black-clothed great shaman's body trembled, his eyes filled with fear. He naturally knew the true identity of the dead great shaman. Looking at the contract in Qin Yu's hand, his entire body trembled. No. With this contract, Qin Yu could really completely wipe out the entire black-clothed bloodline. Not a single one would be left. The black-clothed great shaman knelt on the ground. "Your Majesty, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I beg you, don't completely wipe us out. The black-clothed bloodline is willing to submit to you." The great shaman of Meng Mountain hesitated for a moment. He bowed and said, "Your Majesty, you have already arrived at the ancestral court. Once your identity is exposed, you will surely set off a great war that will sweep through the world. My race is in need of manpower. Why don't we just kill the leader and give the rest of the black-clothed bloodline a chance to atone for their crimes?" "Yes, yes, yes." The black-clothed great shaman kowtowed again and again. "I am willing to die to quell your Majesty's anger. I beg you to be merciful." Qin Yu shook his head. "I do not believe in traitors." The black-clothed great shaman froze, despair filling his face. The entire black-clothed bloodline was finished. "Qin Yu, if you wipe out the black-clothed bloodline, the ancestral court of the barbarian race will definitely be destroyed. I have already prepared a backup plan. Without the black-clothed bloodline maintaining it, it will expose itself on its own." The great shaman of Meng Mountain revealed a look of anger. If he wasn't forced into a desperate situation, he would never have said this. And once he truly forgave the rest of the black-clothed bloodline, it would be the same as burying a great hidden danger for the barbarians. "Black-clothed, if you really do this, you will forever be a sinner of the barbarians." The black-clothed great shaman roared. You forced me to do this." He stubbornly stared at Qin Yu. "Qin Yu, I am willing to die. I beg you to forgive the black-clothed bloodline. It is time for you to make a decision." Qin Yu lifted his hand and grabbed the contract in front of him. "I will not accept threats." The black-clothed great shaman's eyes widened, filled with disbelief. How dare he? He actually dared. He really dared. Bang. His entire person directly exploded into pieces. At the same time, a similar situation occurred throughout the entire barbarian ancestral land and even in the surrounding barbarian territories. Everyone in the black-clothed bloodline, as long as they had the bloodline of the signed contract flowing within them, was completely wiped out. Within the ancestral court, the smell of blood was so thick that it almost seemed tangible. This was because nearly all the guards of the ancestral court had died along with the black-clothed great shaman. Blood covered the earth. The great shamans all revealed looks of awe and fear. Their hearts trembled. His Majesty's temperament was so tough and cold. Only the great shaman of Meng Mountain could guess that Qin Yu did this in the most direct and powerful way to wipe out all dissenting voices within the barbarian race in order to deal with the upcoming war. But the black-clothed bloodline had died. How could the hidden dangers of the ancestral court be resolved? He bitterly smiled. "Your Majesty, we are in trouble." Qin Yu withdrew his hand. "Since I have killed them, I no longer fear any threats. Since there is a possibility that this place will be exposed, we will change locations and rebuild the barbarian ancestral court." The Star Sea Grotto was the best choice. Chapter 1808. Great Qin Capital. Xianying. Inside and outside the Qin Emperor's palace, there were corpses everywhere. All of the servants had been killed on the spot by the burst of aura. Blood flowed from their orifices, and a pungent stench filled the air. As the ruler of the Great Qin, although he only controlled the central desolate region, he was the true ruler of the entire desolate region. Thus, when the Qin Emperor was summoned by the black-clothed Grand Shaman, he could sense Qin Yu's aura. This also confirmed Qin Yu's true identity. Barbarian sovereign. Looking at the world, he was the ruler of billions of barbarians. This exceeded the Qin Emperor's expectations. His mind shook, and he found it hard to maintain his composure. This was because Qin Yu already had the qualifications to step onto the Joss Flame Great Road. And once he succeeded, the tightly shut palace door opened and the imperial advisor entered. "Your Majesty." He respectfully bowed, his expression heavy. This was the first time in countless years that the imperial advisor had seen His Majesty lose his composure. From this, one could see how serious the situation was. "Imperial advisor, I suddenly have a feeling that the Great Qin will be replaced. Tell me, with my status and identity, for me to have such thoughts, is it a sign?" The imperial advisor said, "Your Majesty's cultivation is heaven-piercing, and you are invincible in this world. No one can defeat you, and naturally cannot replace my Great Qin. Do not be affected. As long as you maintain your calm, you will naturally be able to deal with the phoenixes coming from all directions and ensure that the destiny of my Great Qin doesn't scatter." The Qin Emperor was expressionless. "I am indeed invincible in this world. But if the heavens want me to die, what can I do?" He stood up and walked down from the throne. Qin Yu's true identity is the current barbarian sovereign. With the support of the barbarians, he will surely step onto the Joss Flame Great Road. The imperial advisor's complexion changed. He clenched his teeth. Then kill him before he truly steps onto the Joss Flame Great Road. The Qin Emperor was silent. He looked up at the sky. "Before that, I would like to ask the heavens if they really want to destroy my Great Qin." As his words fell, the Qin Emperor took a step forward. Bang! The sky above suddenly shattered, and countless terrifying cracks frantically spread in all directions. The Qin Emperor walked out. Strong winds fluttered his robes, and a terrifying pressure descended like a vast abyss. Yet this had no effect on the Qin Emperor. He lifted his head and faced the attack head-on, a faint golden color appearing in the deep end of his eyes. "We are the ruler of Great Qin and have been at peace with the heavens and earth for so long. However, Qin Yu has appeared and wants to destroy Great Qin and destroy our Tao. Today, we will ask the heavens if they are willing to help we, Great Qin." A large face appeared in the skies. It opened its eyes, killed Qin Yu. A deep voice came from his mouth. The Qin Emperor laughed out loud, his voice shaking the 9 heavens. Good. On that day, the Xianying Imperial Palace sent out an edict from the Qin Emperor. It was summarized as follows: Heaven-splitting swordsmanship, Sex Chinyu, is the new barbarian emperor. Summon all the countries in the wasteland region to attack the barbarian race and kill Chinyu. As soon as the edict was announced, every country in the Great Desolation realm responded. The wars and killings between the desolate man and the barbarians had started countless years ago and continued to this day. The blood feud between the two sides was as deep as the sea, and it could not be resolved. The appearance of a new barbarian emperor meant something. This had already been proven in the past war between the barbarian and desolate races. Conquer the barbarian race and kill the barbarian emperor. Otherwise, it would be a disaster for all the kingdoms in the wasteland region. Very soon, the situation of the world's war against the barbarians was set, and it was on the verge of breaking out. Swallow Mountain. The heaven-splitting sword Sex Mountain Gate was heavily surrounded. None of the factions were qualified to resist the Great Qin Empire's cavalry. The entire Swallow Mountain shook and trembled under the trampling of the cavalry. On this day, the swords of the sword cultivators did not ring. Qin Yu of the heaven-splitting sword sect is the new barbarian emperor. He snuck into Great Qin's territory with ulterior motives. Today, we will suppress the heaven-splitting sword sect and kill anyone who dares to resist. A Qin general roared on the giant beast. But he did not notice that the strongest sword in the army behind him, the sword cultivators' camp, were hesitating. Because whether Qin Yu was the barbarian emperor or not, he was the only true emperor realm sword cultivator in the world. He was the orthodox sword cultivator in the hearts of all the sword cultivators. Hu Jiming roared, "Put down your swords! Put down your swords! Damn it, do you want to die?" His face was pale and he was sweating profusely. There was no strong fortress in front of the Great Qin's cavalry. Even the 4 sects and 4 families did not dare to resist. Not to mention that it was the heaven-splitting sword sect. Zhang Xiashan, Tai Lin, listen up, we surrender today because we don't want unnecessary casualties. Hu Jiming looked at the crowd and gritted his teeth. The sect master is still safe and sound. As long as the sect master is alive, we will have a chance to make a comeback. Heavenly Bull Region. Heavenly Bull City. Niu Dingtian was sweating profusely and his eyes were shaking. Barbarian Emperor. Qin Yu was the barbarian emperor. He wiped his forehead and bitterly smiled. He discovered that he had never been able to clearly see just what sort of person Qin Yu was. Wasn't he concealing himself too deeply? What would happen if people knew that the barbarian emperor's sister was raised in the Niu family? Even with Niu Dingtian's cultivation, he shuddered. The entire Niu family would be torn to pieces. His first thought was that Qin Chichi must not stay here any longer. But after taking 2 steps, Niu Dingtian stopped. His face was cloudy. First, Niu Daodu would be the first to object if he sent Qin Chichi away. Now, the 2 of them were as good as one person, almost inseparable. Second, if he did that, it would be tantamount to cutting ties with Qin Yu. The good relationship between them would be gone. They might even become enemies. And Qin Yu was the chosen one, little meat. Niu Dingtian gritted his teeth. He had to admit that deep in his heart, he was in awe of the unfathomable little meat. Even if the barbarians were defeated and Qin Yu was killed in the war against the barbarians, what about little meat? Niu Dingtian knew very well that even if something happened to little meat in her current state, no one could really kill her. Not even Emperor Qin. And as long as little meat didn't die, everyone who killed Qin Yu would have to face her cruel revenge. Niu Dingtian took a deep breath. He suddenly realized that the Niu family could face destruction no matter what. Alas! He let out a long sigh and sat down dejectedly. Old Niu decided to do nothing and maintain the status quo. As long as Qin Chichi's identity was not exposed, the Niu family would be fine. Moreover, what if Qin Yu won? Although the probability was small, if that happened, Qin Chichi would be a way out for the Niu family. Even if the sun changed over their heads, the Niu family could stand firm and even go one step further. At this time in the barbarian ancestral court, An unprecedented Great Migration was underway. Qin Yu wanted to abandon the small world that the barbarians had established as their foundation since ancient times and move the ancestral court into the Star-Sea Grotto Heaven. Even with the barbarian sovereign status, this was not something that could be easily done. All the barbarians in the ancestral court began to move. They were excited and anxious about the unknown as they prepared for the migration. Qin Yu sat in the ancestral court, holding the scepter in his hand. He closed his eyes slightly, and everything in the ancestral court was under his perception. At the same time, in Qin Yu's mind, a great Tao shot up into the sky. 9 winding paths reached the heavens, showing off its magnificence. Now, there were countless spots of light constantly pouring into it. That was the power of Joss flames. When the great Tao absorbed enough Joss flames, it could be ignited and transformed into the Joss flame Great Tao, helping Qin Yu reach a level comparable to Emperor Qin. And now more and more light spots were fusing in, as if a misty spring rain had fallen. The great Tao was bathed in it. The great shaman of Meng Mountain entered the ancestral court and bowed. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Qin Yu opened his eyes. At this moment, a faint phantom of the great Tao appeared in the depths of his eyes, releasing an invisible pressure. The great shaman of Meng Mountain's shoulders sank. He immediately revealed a happy expression. "Congratulations, Your Majesty." The stronger Qin Yu was, the stronger the barbarians were. In the current situation, this was naturally the best news. "What is it?" The great shaman of Meng Mountain said, "The barbarian tribes from all sides have sent news. The Qin Empire has revealed Your Majesty's identity and has issued an expedition order. Now, the 4 desolate regions have responded. The war against the barbarians has begun." His tone was heavy. It could be said that this was the most dangerous situation the barbarians had ever faced, because in the previous wars, the Qin Empire had only been a bystander. It had stood high above, looking down on the barbarians. It had never personally acted. But this time, it was clear that the Qin Empire was the true instigator of this war. This was because the phrase "Qin is also the Qin" had spread throughout the desolate regions because of Emperor Qin's pursuit of Qin Yu. With the addition of the Qin Empire, the situation of the barbarians, who had been at a disadvantage against the desolate countries, was even more unoptimistic. Qin Yu's eyes narrowed, but his expression remained calm. This was because before he came to the ancestral court, he had already expected this day. The barbarian emperor's identity had been exposed. In order to prevent him from stepping onto the incense flame avenue, Emperor Qin had to suppress the barbarians. "I understand." The great shaman of Meng Mountain said, "Your Majesty, the barbarians do not fear death. Even if they have to fight against the 8 desolate countries, they will dare to fight." His eyes were firm. "Your Majesty, please take care of yourself. As long as Your Majesty is safe, the barbarians will have a day where they can rise again." As the new barbarian emperor, if Qin Yu stood with the barbarians and intervened in this war, he would no longer be able to hide himself. Emperor Qin must be looking for a chance to kill Qin Yu in one strike. Qin Yu was silent. He knew that the great shaman of Meng Mountain's reminder had good intentions. But, as the new barbarian emperor, how could he watch the barbarian tribes suffer a catastrophe while he stayed out of it? Of course, Qin Yu knew that Emperor Qin was desperately looking for him, trying to kill him at a controllable stage. Going head-on without a care in the heat of the moment was not something he would do. But this did not mean that Qin Yu could not do anything. On the contrary, before entering the ancestral court of the barbarian race, he had already started to make arrangements. Bai Fei should have left the 13th floor by now. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. Even if he was the barbarian emperor, as long as the Tower Master wanted to transform into a long-lived species, he would naturally stand opposite to Emperor Qin. Although the enemy of an enemy was not necessarily a friend, it was not too difficult to cooperate and use each other for a while. Meng Mountain. What are the preparations for the ancestral court? The great shaman of Meng Mountain said, Your Majesty, we can start moving in at most 3 days. Good, then we will rebuild the ancestral court in 3 days. Yes, Your Majesty. Soon, 3 days had passed. In the ancestral court, all the barbarians widened their eyes and looked at the highest mountain peak. Their Majesty, the future and hope of the entire barbarian race, was there. And today, the new emperor would lead them to complete the migration of the ancestral court. Grandfather, the ancestral court is the foundation of our barbarian race. Isn't it a bit rash to move it so easily? A young barbarian asked worriedly. His words received some response. The eyes of the surrounding barbarians gathered in this direction. The old barbarian's hair and beard had already turned white. He glared at him and angrily shouted, "Fool! His Majesty's decision is naturally correct. You must remember that His Majesty is the emperor of our barbarian race, the ruler of all barbarians in the world. His will cannot be questioned. My race's new emperor has returned. He will move the barbarian ancestral court and lead us into a new era of the barbarian race." His eyes were excited and his face flushed red. Children, open your eyes wide. The glory that our barbarian race has lost will shine once more in this world under His Majesty's leadership. The barbarians are its true masters. In the next moment, rumble, rumble, the entire ancestral court suddenly shook. It rose up from the ground like a great ship that carried mountains and rivers as it rushed into the skies. Accelerate, accelerate. The ancestral court became faster and faster. Finally, it crashed into the edge of the heavenly passage world. Space violently shook and it squeezed out. Within the ancestral court, Qin Yu grasped his scepter, his expression solemn. Moving the ancestral court was not a simple matter. It would cause a great stir, and once any true emperor in the world discovered it, Emperor Qin would surely descend. Thus, he had to complete the migration in the shortest time possible. Qin Yu lifted his scepter and shouted, "Mountain River Sword!" Hum! The Mountain River Sword appeared. It fell outside the ancestral court. It rose up and slashed forwards. Rumble, rumble. There was a heaven-shaking explosion. The entire world trembled. The skies in front of them shattered and collapsed, forming a crack that nearly pierced through the heavens. The accelerating barbarian ancestral court crashed into it without hesitation. In the next moment, with a violent shaking, giant stars appeared in front of the barbarians. They had already entered the Star-Sea Heavenly Passage world. Ah, this is the Star-Sea Heavenly Passage. What a vast territory! It's actually divided into a sea of stars with many stars scattered within. How is this a heavenly passage world? This is clearly a corner of the entire world, the same as a world of its own. If my barbarian ancestral court can take root here, then so what if the desolate man launches a world war against the barbarians? My barbarian race can still continue on. Within the ancestral court, countless barbarians were incomparably excited. But now, Qin Yu's complexion wasn't relaxed at all. He turned around and looked at the crack behind him. It was rapidly fading and healing. In just several breaths of time, it would completely disappear and the aura of the barbarian ancestral court would be severed. But it just so happened that these several breaths of time were the most dangerous times. This was because the disturbance was far too great. Even if he tried to compress the process as much as possible, it was still possible that Qin Emperor would arrive in the next moment. He grasped the scepter in his left hand and the Mountain River Sword in his right. Qin Yu had already prepared himself for the worst. He would face Qin Emperor once more. With his cultivation, it was true that he wouldn't be able to withstand a single strike from Qin Emperor. But with the scepter in hand, that was the same as having the entire barbarian ancestral land behind him. Borrowing the strength of the ancestral land was what gave Qin Yu the confidence to take this risk. Migration was imperative, and he couldn't take any risks, because although the Black Clothes lineage had been exterminated, hidden dangers still existed. The crack grew smaller and smaller, but at this time, Qin Yu's heart shrank. Bang! The skies outside the crack shattered. A terrifying aura arrived. Even though he was far away, Qin Yu could still feel the peerlessly overbearing aura belonging to Qin Emperor. In the end, he had still come. Qin Yu took a deep breath and stepped forwards. The mountain river sword in his hand hummed. Just as he was about to slash out with his sword, the descending Qin Emperor suddenly roared out, "Tower Master, you dare to become enemies with my great Qin!" Rumble, rumble. The skies completely shattered. Qin Emperor arrived, but he was a step too slow. The spatial crack vanished, and the aura belonging to the barbarian ancestral court was isolated by the star Sea Heavenly Passage. "Ah!" Qin Emperor angrily roared. He punched out with his fist, shattering mountains and rivers. Chapter 1809. After ascertaining that the Qin Emperor couldn't do anything, he continued to trace the energy and barged into the heavenly grotto of the star ocean forcefully. Qin Yu relaxed a little, and a smile appeared at the corner of his lips. The effect of having Bai Fei go to the 13th floor was now being demonstrated. Now, though the barbarians were the target of all, the Qin Emperor had one more opponent that he could not afford to underestimate. Furthermore, the 13th Tower's declaration was a form of deterrence to the various kingdoms in the wasteland region. It was enough to make them more fearful and hesitant when they made some moves. Of course, this was far from enough. But Qin Yu would continue to increase the price. He would destroy the world's war against the barbarians and fight for more space for the barbarians to live. Otherwise, with the desolate region's various kingdoms working together with Great Qin as the leader, the barbarians would have no chance of winning this war. He turned around and returned to the Star Sea Grotto. With a thought, the Goliath ancestral court descended upon Azure Dragon Mountain. Rumble, the ground trembled. The barbarian ancestral court and Azure Dragon Mountain were rapidly merging. This was something that no one else would be able to accomplish. But to Qin Yu, it was a very simple matter. He was the spirit of fortune of heaven and earth, the master of the star ocean, grotto heaven. As the barbarian sovereign, he naturally had complete control over the barbarian ancestral court. Because of it, Azure Dragon Mountain had fused with the Berserkers' ancestral court, and it meant that the Berserkers had obtained the blessing of the world. And this was the key reason why Qin Yu decided to move the Goliath ancestral court to Starsea Grotto Heaven. Very soon, the great shamans among the Berserkers sensed that something was different. It was a feeling that was difficult to describe with words. It was as if he had suddenly taken off a soaked, cotton-padded shirt that he was wearing. He felt extremely comfortable and relaxed. It's the world. Its suppression on us Berserkers has disappeared. A great shaman said excitedly. Another great shaman growled. Ever since we Berserkers were defeated by the humans and lost our status as the rulers of the world, we fled to this desolate land. We lost the favor of the world and suffered an invisible suppression. And now, this suppression has finally been broken. From today onwards, the barbarian tribe can finally straighten their backs and stand at the same height as the desolate man. They don't need to bear the burden of facing the enemy. The grand shaman of Meng Mountain raised his head and looked at the sky above the ancestral court. Now, as it merged into Mount Azure Dragon, Qin Yu's figure appeared again, majestic and powerful, like a god supporting the heavens. And now, the strength of the world's destiny lingered and tumbled around Qin Yu's body, adding to his boundless aura. He was incredibly excited, and tears fell down his cheeks. His Majesty gave the kismet of the world to us Berserkers. The great shaman of Meng Mountains knelt on the ground and cried out loudly, "Our barbarian race has welcomed back His Majesty, and we will definitely be able to rise again and stand at the peak of the world." All the Berserkers in the ancestral court were filled with anxiety and panic. At that moment, all of them retreated and knelt on the ground with the great shaman. For the first time in their hearts, they truly believed that His Majesty would lead the Berserkers to a better place. Rumble, more and more Joss flame power erupted, fusing into Qin Yu's great Tao. He could clearly feel the Joss flame, great Tao condensing. He was accumulating his foundation and waiting for an opportunity. Qin Yu smiled. His decision to take the risk of migrating the Goliath ancestral court was indeed correct. He stood up and raised the scepter in his hand. The towering figure followed his movements, and a deep, mighty voice came out of his mouth. I am the Emperor of Berserkers, and I am also the spirit of Kismet in the world. I will naturally remove the world's suppression for us Berserkers. From today onwards, the Star Sea Grotto will be the new ancestral court, the starting point for my Berserkers. I guarantee you that the Berserkers will rise and suppress all. Countless Berserkers cheered. Long live His Majesty, the Berserker Sovereign. Long live His Majesty, the Berserker Sovereign. Kacha, Kacha. In Qin Yu's hand, the surface of the scepter that belonged to the ancestral court suddenly shattered. Under his surprised gaze, a golden liquid flowed out and directly fused into Qin Yu's body. As for the scepter fragment, it seemed as if it had been weathered for countless years, directly turning into powder. A formidable strength roared and shook his body. It didn't enter Qin Yu's great Tao, but fused into his flesh and blood. In just several breaths of time, Qin Yu's mortal body had been tempered to its strongest degree. He could crush the void with a fist. This was the true Berserker sovereign body, the strongest body in the world. At this moment, Qin Yu was certain that even if he didn't use the power of the great Tao, he could still kill a true sovereign with just his mortal body. Countless memories belonging to the Berserker sovereign's bloodline exploded in his mind. Qin Yu closed his eyes and rapidly absorbed and organized them. After a long time, he opened his eyes, revealing a trace of vicissitudes. So this was the Berserker race. In these memories, Qin Yu saw the boundless ancient world. He saw the 100,000-foot tall Berserker ancestors that could pluck the moon and stars with a wave of their hands. At that time, they had another name, the Ancient Race. But the Ancient Race was far too strong. Their existence was strong enough to threaten the highest and lofty existences. Thus, the great calamity of the Ancient Race arrived. Their corpses were suppressed beneath the temples, becoming the pillars that supported the highest existences. The Ancient Race was destroyed, their last remaining bloodline. Because they had evolved into the Berserker race, they no longer possessed the noble bloodline of their ancient ancestors. Qin Yu finally understood why he had become the new Berserker sovereign. It was because he was the last ancient. With the bloodline of the ancient race, he was naturally the most noble and powerful of all the Berserkers in the world. His position as the Berserker sovereign was irreplaceable. At the same time, the fully awakened Berserker sovereign's inherited memories allowed Qin Yu to learn many secrets about the world. For instance, the desolate domain, the human cultivator system, the strength of the Qin sovereign, and also the key to cultivating the great Tao of burning incense. To borrow the power of an immortal object to become a so-called immortal was to sever one's own great Tao and never ascend to the eternal realm. To transform into a long-lived being was a mistake in cultivating the great Tao. It was a mistake that countless cultivators, even someone as powerful as the 13th floor master, could not resist. But who would have thought that breaking into the eternal realm and transforming into a long-lived being was also a mistake? In ancient times, it was a realm created by some formidable existences that were too weak to step onto the great Tao of burning incense and were unwilling to die. This was because once one transformed into a long-lived being, they would become immortal and would never be able to change. They would never be able to truly ascend to the peak of the great Tao. The only correct path was the great Tao of burning incense. To defy the heavens with the strength of a single person, no matter how strong or talented they were, there was no chance of success. Only by fusing incense into the great Tao and combining the strength of all living beings could one take a step further. This was the only great Tao. As for the Berserkers, or perhaps it could be called the Ancient Race, They had already attempted to establish their own divine kingdom in ancient times, establishing an era that belonged to the ancient race. It was because of this that they encountered that great calamity that nearly destroyed the ancient race. But now, Chinyu had to step onto the path that the ancestors of the ancient race had never walked. Chinyu took a deep breath and suppressed all his thoughts. His expression was firm. However, he was well aware that it would be extremely difficult to walk down this path. Not to mention the fact that the Qin Emperor would try to kill Chinyu after discovering his identity. Just lighting the great Tao of burning incense was not something that could be accomplished in a short period of time. In ancient times, the ancient race was so powerful that they even had the strength to threaten the highest existences. Even so, they weren't able to overcome the great calamity and successfully light the great Tao of burning incense. So, even though he had smoothly crossed the threshold of the great Tao of burning incense, Qin Yu still didn't feel relaxed. He had to think of a way to speed up the process of lighting the great Tao of burning incense. The threat that Qin Yu faced wasn't just Emperor Qin, and in this matter, looking at the entire world, there were only two people that could help him. The first was without a doubt Emperor Qin. As the only person in the present world who had lit the great Tao of burning incense, an invincible existence in the world, there was no one more qualified to speak on this matter than him. But for Qin Yu to ask him for help was no different from seeking death. The second was Min Changjing. This old fellow had hidden his depths, and it was unknown just how many methods he had. Yet he knew how to step onto the great Tao of burning incense. Then it was possible that he knew how to speed up his cultivation. Of course, Qin Yu didn't have absolute confidence he could do it, but at this time he could only try. Not too long ago he had found Min Changjing and personally put on a show of threatening him. To turn around and look for him again, cough, cough, that didn't seem right. But this thought only existed for a second before it was cut off by Qin Yu without hesitation. He couldn't even live on, so why would he care about such things? Once the ancestral court completely fused with Azure Dragon Mountain, he would go. 2 days later, the rumbling of the earth disappeared. The barbarian ancestral court had truly fused with Azure Dragon Mountain. Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. Soon, the great shaman of Mang Mountain arrived. Following him was the great shaman of Earthfire. He had been injured and had been recuperating. Now he knelt on the ground and respectfully kowtowed. Earthfire greets, Your Majesty. Thank you for saving my life. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves. I am the barbarian emperor. I naturally won't stand idly by as a great shaman is harmed. His eyes fell on the two. I will soon leave the ancestral court and go to the outside world to find a way to speed up the incense flame, great Tao. I will leave the internal affairs of the barbarians to the great shamans. With the entire world attacking the barbarians will inevitably be under great pressure. The early stages of the war will be extremely difficult. Send a message to the barbarian tribes and have them gather their strength to retreat. For now, don't clash with the armies of the other countries. I will think of a way to solve the current situation as soon as possible. The great shamans of Mang Mountain and Earthfire bowed. Your Majesty, rest assured that we will do our best to maintain the situation of the barbarians and wait for your return. Qin Yu nodded. Good. Shua, his figure vanished from sight. It was empty in Changdao. Qin Yu looked around and finally confirmed the bad news. Min Changjing had run away. It was just like when he was threatened and schemed against by Midi. He didn't hesitate to drag his family away from the western wasteland imperial capital. He didn't want this Changdao place anymore. He left very simply and thoroughly. He had almost erased all traces of the Min family here. This caused Qin Yu to frown, embarrassment in his eyes. This was because the facts had proven that Min Changjing's decisiveness was reasonable. Qin Yu had come looking for him again. What should he do now? An unfathomably deep true sovereign who had lived for countless years. If he wanted to hide, it would be difficult for others to find him. At this time, Qin Yu frowned. He turned and looked at the girl with a long braid who had emerged from the water. Why haven't you left? This girl was the old chef's daughter. Her clothes were soaked in the lake water, and her curves were revealed. She walked over, her expression calm. Because I don't want Master to continue running away. Qin Yu said so? The girl smiled. I know where Master is. I will take you there. Your request. The girl said, I hope that your Majesty, the barbarian sovereign, will not use young Master to threaten me again. I don't want to be a widow. Qin Yu nodded. I agree. The girl walked over. Hold me. Qin Yu raised an eyebrow. She had a calm expression. I am not a true sovereign, so I can't descend with a thought. Also, your Majesty, if you don't react quickly enough, once Master discovers something is wrong, you won't be able to find him. Qin Yu reached out and pulled the girl into his arms. The cool lake water and boiling hot body brought about a strange stimulation. He suddenly smelled a sweet fragrance. In the next moment, Qin Yu grabbed the girl's neck and pulled her in front of him. You are quite bold. The girl found it hard to breathe. Her face flushed red. I admit defeat, but I really do know where Master is hiding. Qin Yu's eyes were ice cold. Hula! The water surface was broken again. The old chef emerged, his face filled with panic. Your Majesty, please spare me. Please spare me. He glared at his daughter. You stupid girl, who told you to mess around? You are seeking death. Qin Yu was expressionless. His fingers tightened. The girl revealed a look of fear. The old chef screamed, Your Majesty, the barbarian sovereign! Qin Yu stopped. This is the last time. Don't test my patience. Where is Min Changjing? I will bring your Majesty there. The old chef paled. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves. Bang! Space collapsed, sucking in the three people and causing them to vanish from sight. In the next moment, in an endless sea of bamboo, the drowsy Min Changjing, who had been lying on a bamboo chair, suddenly jumped up as if his butt had been set on fire. He turned to flee, but it was already too late. Hum! The cry of a sword erupted. An endless sharp aura covered Min Changjing. His body froze. He turned around, his face dark and gloomy. Qin Yu, you have gone too far. Qin Yu also knew that he had gone too far, but there was nothing he could do. If he went too far, he would die. In the face of life or death. The lethality of these words to Qin Yu was nearly zero. Master Min, I am truly sorry. I have come to eat with you again. Min Changjing's lips trembled. Eat? Was there anyone who ate like this? His gaze fell on the dazed old chef, and then on his daughter, who was still in Qin Yu's grasp. He sighed and said, What a sin! Isn't it good to live a peaceful life? I have already forgotten what happened in the past. So why do you still remember it? Old chef's body trembled. Master, I have let you down. Min Changjing waved his hand and gritted his teeth. What nonsense! Didn't you hear His Majesty Barbarian Emperor say that he will come to eat with us? You and your daughter. Hurry up and prepare. What? Are you waiting for me to cook for you? Old chef suddenly looked up. Ah, yes, master. Please wait a moment. I will prepare immediately. He looked at Qin Yu with pleading eyes. Qin Yu let go. Cough, cough, cough. The girl with the long braid coughed violently. Her eyes fell on Qin Yu, revealing a look of fear. Just now, she really thought that she was going to die. Stupid girl, hurry up and leave with me. Old chef grabbed her and turned to run, afraid that Qin Yu would change his mind the next moment. Soon, only Qin Yu and Min Changjing were left in this open space. AI, Your Majesty Barbarian Emperor, what kind of status do you have? Moreover, the current situation is grim, so you should return to the barbarians to manage the situation. Why are you looking for an old man like me? Min Changjing had a bitter expression. I beg you, can you just treat me like a fart and let me go? Qin Yu shook his head. I do not dare to treat Master Min as a fart, so I cannot let you go. Min Changjing, clenched his teeth. Surname Qin. Just what do you want? His voice suddenly stopped, because at this moment, Qin Yu pointed a finger. As his finger fell, the aura of Joss Flame spread out. Min Changjing cried out, "Joss Flame Avenue!" He stubbornly stared at Qin Yu, his eyes filled with shock. Chapter 1810. Qin Yu drew back his hand. He nodded. "I must thank Lord Min for helping my sect cross the threshold." Min Changjing, was that what I thought? Bullshit. Why? For so many years, he had tried countless times, tossing and turning, hovering between life and death. In the end, he had failed every time. There wasn't even the slightest chance of success. Otherwise, why would he be willing to give up? But just how long had passed? He hadn't even warmed his, but when Qin Yu came knocking on his door and told him that he had succeeded, how could he bully others like this? But the truth was right in front of him. Min Changjing opened his mouth. Congratulations. These two words were incomparably difficult to say. It was like a stone was stuck in his chest and throat. Qin Yu faintly smiled. I actually think that Lord Min should be the one to say congratulations. Min Changjing was confused. What? My sect stepped onto the incense flame Great Tao, and it was all thanks to Lord Min's guidance. I will not forget this kindness, and will definitely protect the safety of my family. Qin Yu's lips curled up. After all, if Emperor Qin were to find out that Lord Min told me the secrets of the incense flame Great Tao, I'm sure he would be very angry. Min Changjing's eyes widened. How could he not understand? After all, Qin Yu had already placed a naked threat in front of him. He said that he would protect the family. In other words, if he didn't cooperate, Emperor Qin would definitely find out. Qin Yu had a calm expression. If he had to speak of guilt, he would feel a bit guilty. After all, Min Changjing hadn't provoked him and didn't know him anything. To force him to this point was too much, but going too far was better than dying. Min Changjing rubbed his face. He sighed. Your Majesty, barbaric sovereign, has already spoken to this point. What else can I do? A single misstep could lead to 1,000 years of regret. Qin Yu said, Lord Min, rest assured. The war between the barbarians and the desolate region countries has just begun. The final outcome is unknown. Min Changjing didn't speak. Qin Yu understood his meaning. From the current situation, even if he was barbaric sovereign, he didn't have the qualifications to compete with Emperor Qin. To say that the war between the two sides was like an egg striking a stone was too exaggerated, but the chances of victory weren't high. Your Majesty, barbaric sovereign, let's eat first. We can talk as we eat. Qin Yu nodded. All right. Old chef and his young lady moved very quickly. In the time it took for them to talk, they had already prepared a few dishes. The fragrance of the wine filled the room. Everything was placed on the table, and the father and daughter took the initiative to leave. Min Changjing lifted the jug of wine and poured a cup for himself. After a moment of hesitation, he poured another cup for Qin Yu. He raised his cup and said, Your Majesty, barbarian sovereign, I do not wish for prosperity. I only hope that after today you can let us go. Qin Yu looked at his wine cup and shook his head. The general trend has been formed. It will sweep through the world, and no one will be able to remain uninvolved. Masterman, even if I give you a promise today, if there are any problems in the future, I will still come looking for you. I don't want to lie to you. Min Changjing gritted his teeth. No room for negotiation? Qin Yu nodded. Min Changjing raised his head and gulped down the wine in one gulp. His expression was extremely gloomy. Qin Yu picked up a glass of wine and drank it. Then he put it down, remaining silent. He could feel Min Changjing's struggle and hesitation. He was also certain that the quiet bamboo forest was a huge volcano crater that could be torn to shreds by the eruption of magma at any moment. If he took a step back, he could avoid all of this. But Qin Yu couldn't retreat. In the present world, besides Emperor Qin, the only person who understood the Joss Flame Great Tao was Min Changjing. Who? Min Changjing let out a long, long breath. Then his complexion became tranquil. He picked up his chopsticks and began to eat. Your Majesty, barbarian sovereign, for what matter have you come here today? Qin Yu smiled. He lifted the jug of wine and poured a cup for Min Changjing before pouring a cup for himself. I came here to ask Master Min what I should do after stepping onto the Joss flame, great Tao, to speed up the process of igniting the flames. After all, the current world situation is extremely perilous, and there isn't much time left for me. Min Changjing was silent for a moment. He said, I have done some research, but I have never truly cultivated the Joss flame great Tao, so I cannot be certain. Qin Yu said, there is no harm in speaking. Min Changjing said, first, find more believers and collect more incense. As long as there is enough of them, you will naturally be able to speed up the process. Second, Your Majesty needs to find some formidable followers. Their approval is far more useful than ordinary incense. Third, on the 13th floor, Your Majesty, perhaps you don't know, but the information I obtained regarding the incense flame avenue came from the 13th floor. He paused for a moment, and fear appeared in his eyes. Or, to be more precise, it came from the White Jade Capital. Qin Yu frowned. White Jade Capital. After awakening the memories of the barbarian sovereign's lineage, he naturally knew what kind of place this was. Behind it was the cultivation system of the human race. His thoughts raced several times. Qin Yu said, that's it. Min sure shook his head. There is one last point, and that is the Joss flame spirit. He bears the incense of the god nation, which is why he cultivates the Joss flames. The key to Tao. To speed up the Joss flame path, perhaps we can start by increasing the power of the Joss flame spirits. Of course, this needs to be done with caution. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome if we can't get rid of our tail. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. Well said. He raised his cup. Thank you, Lord Min. Min Changjing shook his head. I hope that I will never receive His Majesty's thanks again. Qin Yu stood up. That will be a bit difficult. He looked at Min Changjing. We hope that we will be able to sense Lord Min's aura in God Nation as soon as possible. Shua. His figure vanished from sight. Min Changjing sat there motionless. He drank cup after cup until the flask was empty. Old Chef's face was full of worry. He nervously walked over. Master! With just a single shout, he knelt down. Min Changjing glanced at him and sneered. Now you know what fear is. What were you doing earlier? Old Chef felt wronged. I only have a daughter. Nonsense. You're just a master. Min Changjing rolled his eyes. He tossed down his wine cup and sighed. Then he stood up and left. Master, where are you going? Min Changjing said, to the barbarians. Old Chef's eyes widened. Do you really think that the wine that Qin Yu poured was delicious? Since I drank wine, I have to go out and work for others. Otherwise, I will definitely die. Min Changjing's face was filled with anger. He had been free and unfettered for so long, but in the end he still hadn't been able to jump out. However, there was one point about Qin Yu. He could be considered open and above board. When the great calamity swept through the world, it was impossible for him to stay out of it. Shua, Min Changjing vanished from sight. Old thing, stay here and look after the house. Don't let anything happen to my son. Otherwise your daughter will be a widow for sure. The fisherman couldn't remember how many times he had seen Qin Yu, but there was one thing he was sure of. It definitely wasn't anything good. He glanced at the endless sea of clouds beneath star-sifting mountain and made a decision. He couldn't stay in this land any longer. He would rather starve and find a new source of food to leave Jade Gate Pass. In this broken place, whoever wanted to come could come. However, this time, the contents of the conversation slightly exceeded the fisherman's expectations, causing his eyes to suddenly brighten. A scorching hot aura surged and surged within him. is Goliath sovereign speaking the truth? Qin Yu faced the sea of clouds, his hands held behind his back. I am the Goliath sovereign, so my words naturally carry enormous weight. As long as the ancient remnant bloodline is willing to join the barbarians, I can promise you that I will recognize the ancient remnant bloodline status and give you a pure land where you can live. You will no longer need to be busy fleeing for your lives. I cannot guarantee victory in the end, but for the ancient remnant bloodline, so what if the situation is bad? It can't be worse than it is now. The fisherman's face darkened. After several breaths of time, he clenched his teeth. This matter is too important. I cannot make the decision alone. Then let someone who can make the decision come. I don't have much time, so you had best hurry. All right. The fisherman turned and left. Qin Yu's figure flickered. He still faced the sea of clouds. Occasionally, he could hear the cries of the flying fish. These little fellows were extremely restless. Beneath Qin Yu's gaze, they could feel endless fear. But this sea of clouds was still their final resting place. They didn't dare to run, nor did they have anywhere to run. This was truly an extremely sorrowful matter. And in fact, the ancient remnant bloodline was in a similar situation to these flying fish. Facing Qin Yu was like the flying fish facing Qin Yu. They had nowhere to run and were powerless to resist. In the end, they would slowly weaken until they perished. This was the reason why Qin Yu first came to find the ancient remnant bloodline today. This was because Qin Yu could give them a new possibility. Even if it didn't seem too great right now, for a race that had fallen into a quagmire and was on the verge of destruction, they should know what choice to make. Space shook and the fisherman stepped out. Two more figures followed behind him. Goliath Sovereign, we have arrived. Qin Yu turned around. I believe that you have already made your decision. Behind the fisherman, the only female ancient remnant true empress suddenly said, Goliath Sovereign does not need to worry. The one who has arrived is Qin Emperor. Qin Yu lifted a hand and pointed in the direction of Xianying. If Qin Emperor makes a move, I will naturally know. This was not nonsense. The Qin Empire of today was indeed Qin Emperor's Great Qin, but Qin Yu was also deeply involved with it. The Qin Emperor resided in the Qin Empire. To Qin Yu, he was the bright moon in the dark night, visible as he looked up. Otherwise, he wouldn't have allowed the fisherman to leave and waited at the peak of star-sifting mountain. I don't have much time. Tell me your decision. After a brief silence, the three ancient remnant true empresses fell to their knees. The saint race is willing to follow Goliath Sovereign. The fisherman's words were the key to their decision. The situation couldn't be any worse than it was now. No one knew what degree the ancient remnant bloodline had fallen to after being hunted down and suppressed by the Qin Empire for countless years. Of the powerful races that ruled the world in the past, only 4 remained. True empresses, each one struggling at death's door, not daring to reveal themselves. After the Dongting Pavilion Master was killed by Qin Yu, there were only 3 left. The ancient remnant bloodlines had truly reached the edge of the abyss of destruction. In the Battle of Xianying, Qin Yu had displayed his formidable strength. Although Qin Emperor was still invincible in the world, the fact that he was able to escape unscathed was in itself a kind of qualification. Moreover, Qin Yu also had the status of Goliath Sovereign. Without a doubt, his chances of victory increased by several degrees. Thus, the ancient remnant bloodline was willing to give it their all. If they won, they could change the dire situation of their entire race. If they failed, that was nothing more than experiencing Great Qin's purge and pursuit once more. In any case, the saints were already used to this. Very good. Qin Yu smiled. You have made a wise choice. My promise to you will surely be fulfilled in the future. As he spoke to hear, his thoughts stirred and his smile deepened. Qin Yu could feel the aura of Min Changjing. In other words, he understood the price of drinking that cup of wine. After drinking it, he would be his. You 3! The various countries of the desolate region have joined forces to wage war against the barbarians. It is inconvenient for me to appear and interfere, so I need you to help the barbarians stabilize the war situation. The complexions of the three ancient remnant true empresses changed. Goliath's sovereign, it isn't that we don't want to, but that Qin emperor has chased us for many years. Once his aura is exposed, he will surely descend. At that time, Qin Yu said, "Don't worry. Since I asked you to help, I will guarantee that Qin emperor will not descend upon the wild battlefield." There was something he didn't say. Unless Qin emperor wants to lose Xianyang. As the imperial capital of the Great Qin Empire, it was also the hub of the Great Qin Empire's destiny. It was the place where the power of incense flames gathered in the world. Once it was destroyed, there would be a tremendous backlash against Qin emperor. With a single thought of the true empress descending, as long as Qin emperor dared to leave Xianyang, Qin Yu would arrive in the next moment. The female true empress sucked in a deep breath. She clenched her teeth and said, "Very well. This saint and the others will believe in your majesty. I hope that your majesty will not make us regret this." Qin Yu waved his hand. "You can start preparing now. Enter the territory of the barbarians as soon as possible. I will arrange everything ahead of time." "Yes." The fisherman suddenly said, "Goliath's sovereign, this saint has another matter." Qin Yu said, "Speak." "Even if the saints join in, the barbarians will still be at an absolute disadvantage against the various countries. So, this saint suggests that your majesty subdue the monster race. They aren't like the ancient remnant bloodline that still maintains a massive population. If the monster race can help, the situation will be much better." Qin Yu said, "Continue." The fisherman took a deep breath. "There is a problem with Moon Fiend's condition." Qin Yu's eyes brightened. "Are you sure?" The fisherman nodded. "Before, during the war in the monster race's ancestral land, this saint sensed something. As for the specific reason, it involves my cultivation of the great Tao, so it is inconvenient for me to tell your majesty. But this saint can confirm that something has happened to Moon Fiend, and she is the greatest source of confidence for the monster race. If your majesty can grasp this point, perhaps you can persuade the monster race." "Good." Qin Yu smiled. "If this matter succeeds, I will remember your merit. The saints do not ask for any merit. We only hope that your majesty can win." The fisherman cupped his hands together and bowed. Shua, the three ancient remnant true sovereigns left. An unexpected harvest. There was a problem with Moon Fiend's body. The fisherman spoke with such certainty and solemnly told Qin Yu that this matter wasn't minor. In fact, it might even endanger Moon Fiend's life. Only like this could he shake the monster race's attitude. After all, the monster race was different from the ancient remnant bloodline. Although they were still living with their tails between their legs, their situation was much better. They weren't in a life or death situation. To have them follow Qin Yu and resist the great Qin Empire together would indeed be difficult. But now was different. Once Moon Fiend perished, it would be difficult for the monster race to maintain their current status. His thoughts raced, and a decisive look appeared in Qin Yu's eyes. He would make a trip to the monster race, no matter whether or not he succeeded, since there was a chance he would try. Now, he had to win over everything he could and increase his chances of victory. Taking a step forward, Qin Yu's thoughts moved. In the next moment, he appeared outside the monster race's ancestral land. In front of him, there was still endless fog. He stepped in, and the fog dissipated. He was soon discovered by the monster race. "It's Qin Yu, monarch. He actually dares to come to the monster race. Hurry and report this to Blue Divinity." With screams, the monster race began to rapidly draw back. After the Battle of Xianyang City, Qin Yu's fame had spread throughout the world. How could they dare to be insolent? Shua, the peerlessly beautiful Blue Divinity, appeared, like a fairy that had descended from the heavens. She looked at Chinyu and frowned. Monarch, with your status, it is no longer suitable for you to enter my monster race's ancestral land. Please return. Chinyu glanced at her. Where is Moon Fiend? Blue Divinity's frown deepened. This has nothing to do with Monarch. Please leave. Chinyu looked towards the depths of the monster race's ancestral land. From that direction, he could smell the faint scent of blood. I can leave, but Moon Fiend will die. Chapter 1811. Blue Deity's complexion changed. Struggle flashed in her eyes. She lifted a hand and said, All of you leave. The monster race people respectfully nodded and turned to leave. Chinyu's heart settled. With a bit more confidence, his expression became even calmer. Blue Deity said in a low voice, What does Goliath mean? Chinyu said, My meaning is clear to Blue Deity. Otherwise, why would I order the other monsters to retreat? He looked up towards the depths of the ancestral land. What a thick smell of blood. It seems that Moon Fiend's problem is even greater than I expected. Blue Deity, consider this carefully. In this situation, every breath of time is precious to Blue Deity. If we delay any longer, I might not be able to save her life. Blue Deity took a deep breath. Goliath, please follow me. She turned and walked away. Chinyu smiled. Things had gone smoother than he had expected. But this also proved that Moon Fiend's situation was far worse than he had imagined. Otherwise, Blue Deity wouldn't have been so anxious and confused. Shwa, their figures vanished. When they reappeared, they had entered deep into the monster race's ancestral land, above the plains covered with giant stone tablets. Now, the surface of each stone tablet was stained with traces of blood. It gave off an oppressive and cruel feeling, extremely strange. Chinyu frowned. He looked up at the skies, a thoughtful look on his face. He took a step forwards and shouted, Moon Fiend! Space surged and a full moon appeared. But within this deep blue, there was a bit of blood red that couldn't be concealed. Although the area it occupied was small, cracks radiated outwards, splitting the entire moon into countless pieces. Shwa, Moon Fiend's figure appeared. She had a calm expression and wore blood-red robes. She lightly said, Your Majesty Goliath's presence is an honor for the monster race, but the monster race and you have long been mortal enemies. This is a fact known to the entire world. I ask that your Majesty leave as soon as possible. Blue Deity was about to speak, but was interrupted by Moon Fiend. Her eyes were filled with worry. Chinyu had a calm expression, unaffected by Moon Fiend's attitude. I can leave, but there are some things that you should be aware of. The monster race has already lost the monster pool, and their foundation has been greatly affected. If you perish, then even if we draw a clear line between the monster race and the Goliath race, so what? In the end, you cannot protect your own interests. Or, to put it more directly, his eyes stared at Moon Fiend. Once you die, the demon clan will definitely decline. One day, we will completely lose our current status and even become the prey of the desolate man. After all, killing demons to refine elixirs can indeed help the desolate man speed up their cultivation. Moon Fiend was expressionless. Barbarian Sovereign, have you finished speaking? In that case, please leave now. Yao Yu. Qing Shin suddenly spoke. The Barbarian Sovereign said that he can save you. I hope that you can live. Yao shook his head. The whole world is fighting against the barbarians, and the Qin Emperor is involved. The barbarians have no chance of winning. I cannot drag the entire demon race down with me and drag all of you into the abyss of destruction. Therefore, I appreciate Barbarian Sovereign's good intentions. But please leave the demon clan immediately. If not, don't blame the demon clan for being impolite. Chinyu secretly frowned. Moon Fiend's firm attitude was beyond his expectations. Things were a little troublesome. The monster race was numerous in number. Subduing them would be of great help to him. Do I have to give up on this move? Moon Fiend's eyes became increasingly cold. A faint smell of blood spread out from her body. Qin Yu sighed inwardly. It seemed that he would have to return without any achievements today. It wasn't good to tear apart all pretense of cordiality. He had to leave some leeway for both sides to reconcile. If that's the case, he paused and looked at Moonfiend. At this time, she had a pained expression. Her blood-red robes began to emit a blood-red light, making it seem as if she had come alive. The blood-red light twisted, fierce and bloodthirsty. It was like a long red tongue had wrapped around Moonfiend, constantly licking her. Saliva dripped down, and the barbs on the tongue seemed to scrape off a large chunk of her flesh and blood every time. Moonfiend! Qin Shin's complexion changed. He arrived beside her and lifted his hand. Endless monstrous energy appeared and poured into Moonfiend's body. But it was clear that everything she did was useless. The pained expression on Moonfiend's face didn't diminish in the slightest. Instead, the blood-red light on her robes became even thicker than before. There were even signs that she would be swallowed up. Qin Yu's pupils shrank. As he looked at the scene before him, he was finally able to determine the problem with Moonfiend. Her immortal object had shattered. It was no wonder that the monster race's Moonfiend had existed for nearly all eternity, living from ancient times until now. So it turned out that she had also stepped onto the path of an immortal. Becoming an immortal was indeed a wrong move, but it could greatly extend a cultivator's lifespan, nearly to the point of being limitless. But once the immortal object shattered, the immortal would be destroyed along with it. Right now, Moonfiend was facing this situation. The blood-red light on her body came from the shattering of the immortal object. This could be considered a backlash from the immortal object. This was a price that a cultivator who hadn't broken into the eternal realm and transformed into a long-lived species had to bear in order to forcefully extend their lives in defiance of the heavens. It was no wonder that even with the monster race's deep background, they couldn't save Moonfiend. This was indeed an unsolvable problem. This was a hopeless situation of certain death. Qin Yu fell silent. He discovered that his recent smooth sailing had caused him to become a bit careless. This was an imperceptible change in his mentality. He wasn't omnipotent. There were many things in this world that even he was powerless to do anything about. Even if Qin Yu had stepped onto the incense flame, great Tao, and stepped onto the true path of a transcendent realm. Moonfiend's attitude was firm, and she refused Qin Yu without hesitation. It was true that she was worried about dragging down the entire monster race because of her own problems. But besides that, it was likely because Moonfiend was well aware that no one could save her in the hopeless situation she faced. Since this was the case, Moonfiend certainly wouldn't approach Qin Yu. She would rather die here. Golem! Golem! Blue divinity shouted out, "I beg you, save Moonfiend. Please save her." Qin Yu took a deep breath. Hug! Just as he started speaking, he paused. Deep in his eyes, there was a trace of shock and astonishment. This was because the little blue lamp that had been silent for a long time without the least bit of movement suddenly began to fluctuate. Hum! An aura from the little blue lamp descended into Qin Yu's body. Save her! Its voice was calm, but at this time, raging waves rose up in Qin Yu's heart. The reason was simple. The little blue lamp's sudden action meant that the concealment had stopped. And there was only a single explanation for this. Concealment had become unnecessary. The little blue lamp fell silent. But this time was different from before. Qin Yu could feel that it was recovering its strength. Were the pursuers who had crossed the void of dimensions about to descend? Qin Yu's complexion was heavy, and a great stone seemed to weigh down on his heart. He took a deep breath and barely managed to maintain his composure. Golem! Golem! Blue divinity screamed, his voice filled with sorrow and helplessness. Moonfiend was going to die. She was going to die. Qin Yu closed his eyes. After several breaths of time, he opened them again, his expression calm once more. With things having reached this step, it was no longer something he could control. He could only take things one step at a time. He couldn't just sit here and wait for death. Moreover, the little blue lamp had taken action and asked Chinyu to save Moon Fiend. There had to be a reason for this. In other words, in the little blue lamp's opinion, subduing the monster race would be greatly beneficial to Chinyu. It hadn't given up yet. As for what the final result would be, it was still unknown. Shwa, Chinyu stepped forwards. He arrived in front of Moon Fiend and pointed a finger between her eyebrows. Moon Fiend had a pained expression. On her beautiful face, tiny cracks began to appear. Her eyes widened and she struggled to shout, "Golem, leave the monster race immediately. Otherwise, I will immediately summon Qin, sovereign, to descend." Qin Yu was expressionless. "Stupid woman, I have sensed your condition. Since I said I could save you, I will naturally allow you to live. So what if the immortal object is broken? In this world, no one can save you, but I can." Blue Divinity's face shook. Across from him, Moon Fiend was stunned. It had been a long time since someone had dared to be so insolent towards her. Just as her anger was about to erupt, her complexion changed. Because at this time, the strength that had seeped into her body from Qin Yu's fingertip was rapidly repairing the damage to the immortal object. The immortal object was recovering. The most direct observation was that the blood-red light released by Blood Moon's robe was rapidly weakening, and the tiny cracks on her face were also rapidly healing. Blue Divinity covered her mouth, her eyes sparkling. "Moon Fiend, you're saved, you're really saved." Qin Yu's expression was cold and stern. He didn't say a single word. His mood right now was extremely poor. The joy he should have felt after subduing the monster race had disappeared without a trace. This was because he didn't know when the skies above his head would be pierced through and a large fellow of unknown gender would jump down and send him to the afterlife with a hammer strike. In truth, he could clearly feel that his days were numbered. It was truly terrible. Qin Yu was irritable. After a moment, he drew back his hand. He said in a low voice, "Enough." In the next moment, there was a light cracking sound. Across from him, Moon Fiend's blood-red robe was torn to shreds. What appeared in front of him was a nearly perfect body. Every inch of it was perfectly proportioned, like exquisite ivory that emitted a faint halo of light. Shwa, Moon Fiend opened her eyes. Her gaze met Qin Yu's. "Do I look good?" Qin Yu frowned, not saying a word. Moon Fiend lifted a hand. A blue dress appeared and covered her body. She remained silent. Blue Divinity hesitated. Qin Yu said, "I don't have much time to stay in the monster race." Moon Fiend looked at him. "Sovereign Fiend has saved my life, and I am eternally grateful for that. But this does not mean that the monster race will submit to you. The monster race will compensate us. As for the war against the barbarians, we will stay out of it. There will not be a single monster race that will set foot in the barbarian territory. This is my repayment to Sovereign Fiend." Qin Yu suddenly lifted his hand. Moon Fiend's complexion changed, and what left her even more startled and angry was that the strength within her body suddenly froze. It was as if it had been frozen, unable to move at all. "Pa!" A snow-white neck fell into Qin Yu's hand. Because her cultivation was frozen, the dress that formed around her body also vanished. The naked woman was so beautiful that it left one breathless. Qin Yu grabbed her by the throat and pulled her in front of him. But at this moment, there was only an endless chill in his eyes. "Moon Fiend, do you think that you can obtain my favor without paying any price? If I can save you, I can also kill you." Blue Divinity's complexion changed. "Sovereign Fiend," he was interrupted by a wave of Qin Yu's hand. "Shut up." He stared into Moon Fiend's eyes. "Now give me a choice. Submit or die." Moon Fiend's eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. She stubbornly glared at Qin Yu, hatred to the extreme. And at this time, the hand that grasped her neck began to gradually increase its strength. "Kacha! Kacha!" Moon Fiend could clearly hear the sound of bones breaking into her ears. This was the sound of her cervical vertebrae breaking. And it wasn't just that, because this sound also represented that her immortal treasure was breaking. A thick aura of death covered Moonfiend. Finally, a trace of panic appeared in the icy cold depths of her eyes. This was because Moonfiend could confirm that Chinyu really would kill her. Moonfiend! Blue Divinity shouted out, "If you die, what will happen to the monster race? You and I are both clear on this point. Rather than watch helplessly on as the monster race is slowly nibbled away and perished, I would rather make a gamble. Sovereign Fiend can save you. This is his strength. Looking at the entire world, besides him, who else can accomplish this?" A fluctuation appeared in Moonfiend's eyes. "Sovereign Fiend, the monster race is willing to submit." Chinyu loosened his grip and she fell to the ground. She gasped for breath, her body shivering. "This is the first time and also the last time. If there is another time when I attack, you will definitely die." Chinyu glanced at the woman in front of him. His eyes were ice cold, without the slightest fluctuation. "This is—" Moonfiend knelt on the ground, her heart filled with humiliation. But what left her even more ashamed and indignant was that deep in her heart there was a trace of excitement. And this sort of feeling was something that Moonfiend hadn't felt since he vanished many years ago. She lifted a hand and condensed a dress for herself. Otherwise, she worried that she would reveal traces of shame in front of Chinyu. Chinyu was keenly aware of some changes in Yayue at this time. In her eyes, besides fear and a bit of resentment, there were also some other messy things. Very complex. But right now, Chinyu wasn't in the mood to try and decipher Moon's thoughts. He said in a low voice, "The monster race can temporarily not participate in the war between the wild and wild worlds. But I request that you lead all of the monster race in the world to serve me as your master and provide me with the power of incense flames." Moonfiend lowered his head. "Yes, your majesty." Qing Shen widened his eyes and looked at her back in surprise. "Shua." Chinyu stepped forwards and vanished from sight. "I am willing to give the monster race a chance. I also hope that you can grasp this chance." Moonfiend's legs went soft and she almost fell to the ground. Qing Shen hurriedly supported her. "Yao Yu, are you all right?" Then he saw that her face was flushed, she was panting, and her eyes were filled with tears. "No, I'm fine." Moonfiend took a deep breath and gnashed her teeth. "That damned barbarian emperor. He actually dared to treat me like this. Your mother, will definitely not let him off." His tone was filled with hatred, but he didn't have much confidence. He felt a little guilty. Qing Shen had a strange look on his face. "What's wrong with you?" Moonfiend shook her head. "You will understand in the future." She stood up and said, "Let's go. Summon the great monsters of the world. Since we have entered the barbarian emperor's tutelage, we must act as soon as possible." Qing Shen's complexion became increasingly strange. This was completely contradictory to his previous stance. However, she didn't oppose this. The barbarian emperor was unfathomably deep. Doing as he said was the best choice for the monster race. Soon, the monster race's ancestral land began to move. The next day, great monsters left one after another, heading towards various monster gathering grounds. And at this time, Chinyu had already arrived at the 13th floor. He was sitting across from the Tower Master. "Cough, cough, cough." He coughed. His face was pale and his aura was weak. Chinyu cupped his hands together. "I thank the Tower Master for helping me." The Tower Master had a calm expression. "Barbarian Emperor, you probably already know the true origin of the 13th floor, so, with your status, we are destined to be enemies in the end." Chinyu said, "But right now, I and the Tower Master have a common enemy." The Tower Master lightly said, "That is why you, Barbarian Emperor, can safely sit across from me." The Tower Master waved his hand. "There is no need to say anything else. The 13th floor does not need to interfere. As for the conquest of the Goliaths by the various countries, you can solve the rest yourself. I can. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. But besides that, I also need the Tower Master's help. Chapter 1812. The Tower Lord's expression was calm. Barbarian sovereign, please speak. Qin Yu said, in the present world, Qin Sovereign is the only existence that has stepped out of the Joss flame, Great Tao. His strength is incomparably formidable, invincible in the present world. If I really want to fight him, then it's only possible if I cultivate the grand Tao of incense. Otherwise, everything I do now is meaningless, like building a tower on sand. After all, if I want to win this war, then I can only defeat Emperor Qin. The Tower Lord said, Barbarian Sovereign, please speak your mind. Qin Yu's eyes were firm. I hope that Tower Master can tell me how to speed up my cultivation of the Joss flame, Great Tao. There's not much time left for me. Or, to be more precise, there's not much time left for us. Barbarian Sovereign, since you know the origins of the 13th Tower, you should understand that unless it is absolutely necessary, Emperor Qin will not harm the 13th Tower. Hence, I still have a lot of time. Qin Yu looked at him. But Tower Master should also understand that the reason you still have so much time is because I helped you. The Pavilion Master smiled. I have already repaid my debt. Qin Yu shook his head. But my final outcome still hasn't changed. He said in a low voice, with a situation like this, I believe that Tower Master and I should be a bit more open and honest. He raised a finger and said indifferently, there is a limit to how much the world can accommodate. There will only be one longevity, seed born in the endless years. In other words, once Emperor Qin walks the path of burning incense and transforms into a true long-lived being, it will be impossible for you, Tower Master. The hidden danger of an undying object shattering can be temporarily repaired with the help of a complete, long-lived behemoth's corpse. However, the Tower Master knows very well that no matter how good the repair is, it is still not perfect. The cracks are only covered up, but the hidden dangers will still erupt in the future. Qin Yu paused for a moment and met the Tower Master's gaze. But at that time, the Berserkers will no longer exist in the world, and there will be no Berserker Emperor who can help you fight against Emperor Qin. At that time, perhaps the 13th Tower will still exist, and it will be able to pass down its legacy safely. But you, Tower Master, will die. The Eternal Realm and the Longevity Seed were indeed part of the Great Tao. However, the method of entering it would determine whether it was right or wrong. Only when one reached the Eternal Realm on the Joss flame, Great Tao, could they be considered truly eternal. There was also a chance for him to continue improving himself and become stronger. What the Qin Emperor sought was to reach this state, and the conflict between the Tower Master and the Qin Emperor came about because of this. What Qin Yu needed to do now was to tear apart the concealment and place everything in front of everyone. The Tower Master was expressionless. If I help you, what can I obtain? Time and opportunity. Qin Yu said in a low voice, between me and Emperor Qin, only one of us will be able to smoothly survive. Even I have to admit that no matter how you look at it, I will be the one to be killed. My chances of success are slim. But we are not satisfied. We still want to fight. What Floor Master is doing now is to help we become stronger. The stronger I am, the longer I can deal with the Qin Emperor. Tower Head, you should understand this. That was the truth. If Qin Yu said this, he wasn't afraid that the Tower Master wouldn't be moved. In the current situation, he was almost certain to die. Even with the help of the Tower Master, he could only slow down the process of death. The Tower Master had no reason not to help Qin Yu. There was a brief silence. The Pavilion Master nodded. I can inform Emperor Qin, but I need to obtain a promise from you. Tower Master, please speak. I want the Barbarian Sovereign to promise that he will never enter the Eternal Realm in his life. If he disobeys, the Great Tao will shatter, and his body and soul will be destroyed. The Tower Master raised his hand. I swear by the heavens and earth. Previously, he was very clear about what happened to Qin Emperor Wen Tian in Xianying. He naturally knew the current heavenly Tao's attitude towards Qin Yu. He swore by the heavens and earth to force Qin Yu into a hopeless situation, making it so that there was no longer any possibility of twisting or changing the situation. As long as Qin Yu disobeyed, the heavens and earth would inevitably take action. This was the same as blocking off the final hidden danger. Even if there was a 1 in 10,000 chance that Qin Yu won by a fluke, as long as he didn't enter the Eternal Realm, he wouldn't become a stumbling block on his road of the Great Tao. Qin Yu lifted a hand. I swear that everything will be as the Tower Master says. The Tower Master lightly said, I ask the barbarian sovereign to repeat what I said before. Qin Yu did so without hesitation. The Eternal Realm? That was nothing but a castle in the air. Right now, the most important thing was to survive. Otherwise, he really would die soon. Moreover, the little blue lamp had already awakened. His Majesty ruler and Meaty would soon appear. They had been busy for so long, so they definitely wouldn't stare blankly on as he was hammered to death. With these three here, even if he went back on his word in the future, Qin Yu didn't think it would be a problem. Barbarian Sovereign is very smart. I hope that you can tangle with Sovereign Qin for as long as possible. The Tower Master didn't conceal the smile on his face. He coughed several times and flicked his sleeves. A jade slip appeared in front of Qin Yu. Barbarian Sovereign, since you came looking for me, you should have already found Min Changjing, right? This is the key to cultivating the great Tao of incense flame. Qin Yu picked up the jade slip. He didn't sense anything wrong with it. He closed his eyes and probed it with his divine sense. Kacha! Several breaths of time later, there was a light, cracking sound. The jade slip turned to dust. Qin Yu opened his eyes, a look of understanding on his face. In truth, the contents of the jade slip were no different from what Min Changjing had said. It was just that Min Changjing had only pointed out a direction, but the jade slip had given him a clear method to use it. Thank you, Tower Master. I am pressed for time, so I will not stay here for long. Qin Yu stood up and cupped his hands together. A great war has erupted in the wild universe. I hope that Tower Master can help the barbarians obtain some breathing room. Shwa! His figure vanished from sight. The Tower Master drank the wine in his cup and smiled. Barbarian Sovereign, you are a wonderful person. He thought for a moment and then said, Cheongji. Soon, true Sovereign Cheongji arrived. He bowed and said, Greetings, Tower Master. You will immediately head to the barbarians. You do not need to interfere in the war in the wild universe. You only need to appear in the eyes of everyone. True Sovereign Cheongji's eyes widened. This, the Tower Master glanced at him and lightly said, Qin Yu asked me to help him, so I naturally have to satisfy him. Moreover, isn't it obvious that you are the most suitable person to handle this matter? His tone was calm, but it caused a cold sweat to appear on true Sovereign Cheongji's forehead. He hurriedly bowed. Go. Yes. True Sovereign Cheongji turned and left, his face pale and his eyes filled with fear. As he thought, the problem between him and Qin Yu had already been discovered. The Tower Master was nearly omniscient. Luckily, the Tower Master and Qin Yu seemed to have reached some sort of agreement, so he was safe and sound. Otherwise, true Sovereign Cheongji shivered, fear filling his face. After leaving the 13th floor, Qin Yu flicked his sleeves and space froze, concealing his aura. Little blue lamp, you should give me an answer now. Space shook and shattered. The phantom of a great sun appeared. Qin Yu, it is as you think. Those who have crossed worlds to hunt me down have already approached the desolate domain. There is no longer any meaning in me hiding. Although he had already expected this answer still caused Qin Yu's body to shake. Anger and alarm filled his face. How could this be? According to what the little blue lamp said, Although those who were hunting him down had already moved out, he still had time to prepare. But now, how much time had passed? The little blue lamp said, "Your luck isn't good. The other fragment holder has found 2 guides." His tone was a bit helpless. "And between you and those 2 people there is a karmic entanglement. If it weren't for this, they wouldn't have been able to easily lock onto your position." Qin Yu took a deep breath and suppressed the shaking in his heart. Words are useless. The key question is, how do we deal with them? The little blue lamp fell silent. Qin Yu clenched his teeth. How much longer? Any time. What are my chances of winning? Not a single cent. Qin Yu wanted to curse out loud. He was the Goliath sovereign, someone who was worshipped by trillions of barbarians. He had subdued the ancient remnant humans and the monster race, fought with the Tower Master, and obtained the incense flame. Great Tao cultivation method. Everything seemed to be developing in a good direction. But then bad news suddenly arrived. The heavens were collapsing. Then, what meaning was there in everything Qin Yu was doing now? "I don't believe it," he roared out, clenching his teeth. "I have cultivated my entire life and experienced countless life or death battles to reach where I am today. Now you are telling me that someone I have never seen before, is about to descend upon the desolate domain and punch me to death, erasing everything I have. I don't believe it." Qin Yu's eyes were firm and his voice sonorous. "I will not wait for death." The little blue lamp was silent for several breaths of time. It slowly said, "Qin Yu, you can't just wait for death, otherwise I wouldn't have helped you subdue the monster race, nor would I have awakened myself and chosen to join forces with you to resist the enemy. But now there is nothing you can do. You can only passively wait." Qin Yu asked, "Wait for what?" The little blue lamp said, "For an accident to occur." At this time, the little blue lamp looked up into the sky. Qin Yu's heart shrank. At this time, he also felt a terrifying threat. Killing intent shook the world, biting cold like winter. In that moment, Qin Yu stiffened, as if he would freeze over. The little blue lamp suddenly said, "Now the accident has arrived." In the distant depths of the void realm, crimson firmament and autumn were leading the way. Suddenly, the 2 of them revealed happy expressions. They had finally felt the aura of the desolate domain world. They lifted a hand and pointed forward. "My lord, we found it." Dubhe, whose body was illusory like a shadow, looked up in the direction the 2 of them pointed. His eyes were deep and profound. He instantly pierced through the endless space and landed in the desolate domain world. Then, in the next moment, he accurately found the position of the last blazing sun fragment. Dubhe smiled. He stepped forwards, about to pierce through the void realm and arrive in the desolate domain world. If he killed this person and seized the blazing sun fragment, he would become the 9th blazing sun of the present era. But at this time he furrowed his eyebrows. He took back his foot and looked up. In the depths of the void realm, the Sea of Chaos was a land of extreme chaos. There was no concept of space or time here. All laws had been torn apart, leaving behind nothing but chaos. However, at this moment, countless laws were condensing around Yao Tao, forming a set of illusory world shadows. Rumble, rumble. The roar was silent, but it shook the mind. This was because it came from the movement of the entire world. Today, Yao Tao had stepped into the void realm and entered the Sea of Chaos, bringing the world with her. Her eyes were calm. Dubhe took a deep breath. "Who are you?" Yao Tao shook her head. "That isn't important." She lifted a hand and grasped forwards. "What is important is that you cannot enter the desolate domain right now. Otherwise, a new blazing sun will be born, and the process will be far too boring." Bang! The world phantom was instantly released. It was like the mouth of a great beast, swallowing up the entire void realm. In the next moment, the world phantom wildly contracted and collapsed, gathering into a single point. Yao Tao opened her mouth and swallowed the world phantom into her stomach. Then she gently sighed. She stepped forwards, moving deeper into the void realm. Qinyu, this is all I can do for you. You have to work hard. Yao Tao turned her head one last time. She looked at the world of the desolate domain and smiled. Shua, her figure vanished from sight. And as Yao Tao vanished, the terrifying pressure that Qinyu felt in his mind also vanished without a trace. The little blue lamp said, Qinyu, you have time again. You must grasp it and do your best to cultivate the Joss Flame Great Tao. Only like this can you have a chance of victory. Qinyu took a deep breath. What happened? The little blue lamp hesitated for a moment. Someone took action. They blocked the other fragment holder from descending and dragged him into the sea of chaos once more. Who was it? The little blue lamp was silent. Qinyu took a deep breath. We've already reached this step, and just now we almost experienced a life or death situation. Are you still not prepared to tell me everything? The little blue lamp shook its head. It wasn't me, but they weren't willing. Qinyu, there are some things that I know, but I cannot tell you. You will need to interpret them yourself and make a choice. Shua. The great sun phantom scattered and the shattered space vanished. Qinyu's complexion was heavy. Although the little blue lamp didn't say anything, its words gave him a hint. Besides a thin layer of paper, the truth was already clear. Meaty and the ruler? Just who were the two of them? And what choice did Qinyu have to make? There was no answer, but he could feel an invisible pressure in his heart, like a heavy mountain pressing down on his chest, making it difficult to breathe. After a long time, Qinyu took a deep breath and suppressed the shaking emotions in his heart. Only by living would he have the qualifications to know the answer. Otherwise, all of this was meaningless to him. After experiencing the aura of the pursuer who crossed worlds to hunt him down, Qinyu could clearly feel the massive disparity between them once more. The Joss Flame Great Tao was his only chance. Little blue lamp, don't be in such a hurry to run away. I won't ask the same question again. Qinyu said in a low voice. Is there a problem with the method to cultivate the Joss Flame Great Tao that the Tower Master gave me? After a brief pause, the little blue lamp's voice sounded out. There's no problem. Qinyu looked up, his eyes brightening. Increase the number of believers and collect incense. Suppress powerhouses and make them submit to him and obtain faith. Enhance the Joss Flame spirit. The stronger Qinyu was, the faster he would cultivate the Joss Flame Great Tao. There were 3 paths, but Qinyu wanted all of them, a choice that only a child would make. The desolate domain was divided between the desolate and man races. Now that the entire world was fighting against the desolate, it was impossible for Qinyu to continue increasing his believers. He temporarily suppressed this path, and subduing powerhouses was risky. Emperor Qin was eyeing him like a tiger, waiting for him to appear so that he could kill him in a single strike. So for Qinyu, the best choice right now was the 3rd path. Qinyu was born from a spirit embryo of the heavens and earth. His rank was extremely high, and he was a true child of the heavens and earth. To enhance his quality, using the source strength of the heavens and earth to support him was undoubtedly the best choice. But something like the source strength of the heavens and earth was clearly difficult to obtain. A thought fluctuation spread into his mind. The little blue lamp's voice sounded out. In the world of the living, no living being can be allowed to steal their own source strength. Otherwise, heavenly retribution will descend upon them. Qinyu's eyebrows arched up. There are still things that die in this world. Of course. All things will die. Where can I find them? On the other side of the sea. A scene suddenly appeared in Qinyu's mind. On the vast and boundless sea, there were great ships stranded on the shoreline. This was the migration of the desolate domain. The survivors had fled into the desolate domain, leading to the war between the desolate and man races after countless years. On the other side of the sea was the human cultivation system. Chapter 1813. The barbarians sailed through the boundless eternal sea and fled into the desolate domain world. This was all in order to escape the pursuit of the human cultivators. As for Qin Yu, as the current Qin sovereign, going to the other side of the sea was the same as sending a sheep into a tiger's den. Once his identity was exposed, he would undoubtedly die. But now he had no other choice if he wanted to cultivate the Joss flame, Great Tao. Good. Qin Yu's eyes were firm. Everything in the world was fair. If you wanted something, you would lose something. The little blue lamp said, I can help you shield your identity. But on the other side of the sea, the human cultivators are extremely powerful. They have walked a different path from the desolate and Goliath races. In particular, their perception is extremely sharp. I cannot help you casually. Qin Yu smiled. You are no longer that little blue lamp from the past that could only open a foot of sea blue light. I am also no longer that youth at the bottom of the cultivation world. As the Goliath sovereign, I will compete with Qin sovereign for the world's Joss flames. I will fight with those who cross worlds to kill me, and I will fight for the status of a blazing sun. His light smile was calm and confident. He was a true sovereign who had walked the Joss flame, Great Tao, with the unparalleled mountain and river sword in his hand. He feared no one in the world besides Qin sovereign. But this didn't mean that Qin Yu would be careless. Since the human cultivators were able to defeat the powerful barbarians of the past, there was naturally a reason for this. The little blue lamp's reminder just now was the best evidence. And in the desolate domain world, the barbarians must have a grasp of the situation on the other side of the sea. But the one with the deepest understanding was probably the 13th floor. Shua! Qin Yu stepped out, and his figure vanished from sight. In the next moment, he appeared amidst the countless white clouds. In front of him were pavilions and towers, as if they were the abode of immortals. 13th floor. Although he could see it, he couldn't directly enter. He lifted a hand and pointed forward. His finger silently fell, causing ripples to spread outwards. The tower master stepped out from the ripples. With a flick of his sleeves, the clouds in the skies scattered, covering the two of them. Although I am the master of the 13th floor, I cannot completely control the hearts of men. Since the Goliath sovereign has arrived, we must be more cautious to avoid any accidents. Qin Yu had a calm expression. I believe that as long as the tower master is here, no one in the 13th floor will dare to act recklessly. The pavilion master glanced at him, a thoughtful look on his face. Barbarian sovereign, you didn't come back just to compliment me, right? Qin Yu said, There is indeed a matter that I need Tower Master's help with. Barbarian Emperor, I feel that I should remind you that we are on opposing sides. The reason why we're able to stand here today is because we each have our own needs. The Tower Master's voice was cold and indifferent, and his face was expressionless. You'd better think clearly. I'm not your friend. His words were blunt, but Qin Yu didn't care. Tower Master is right. But the problem now is that although I have obtained the method to cultivate the Joss Flame Great Tao, there is nothing I can do about it. The only possibility we can find is to head to the other side of the Eternal Sea and try. The Tower Master's expression changed slightly. Barbarian Sovereign wants to go to the other side of the sea? His voice trembled, and there was a hint of strangeness in it. The way he looked at Qin Yu seemed to be saying, Isn't it better for you to live peacefully? Why did he want to commit suicide? Qin Yu's current strength was indeed formidable. In this world, besides Emperor Qin, he was nearly invincible. This was something that even the Tower Master had to acknowledge. After all, Qin Yu was an existence that had stepped into the Joss Flame Great Tao. Even in the White Jade capital, there were very few people who could do that. Even so, in the eyes of the Tower Master, going to the other side of the sea was the same as seeking death. The human cultivation system was able to destroy the barbarians in the past and multiply to this day. Their background was unfathomably deep. Qin Yu said, I am well aware of what the Tower Master is thinking, but unless I have no other choice, I would not take this step. I must make a trip to the other side of the sea. His eyes were firm and his expression calm. But I asked the Tower Master to rest assured that since I have made this choice, I naturally have confidence that I will not seek death. The Tower Master was silent for several breaths of time. Then he said, "Barbarian Sovereign wants to learn about the human cultivation system for me?" Chinyu nodded. "That's right. I asked the Tower Master to tell me the truth. This is extremely important to me." The Tower Master fell silent once more. He was a bit hesitant. Secretly making a deal with Chinyu was fine, but telling him about the human cultivation system, that was a serious crime. You could sense what the Tower Master was thinking. He lightly said, "The Tower Master controls the 13th tower. Although it seems like you have endless glory, standing above millions and millions, you still cannot escape the fate of death. Only those at the eternal realm, those with long lives, can live freely in this world, and I am the only one who can help the Tower Master. If I die, Emperor Qin will no longer be able to hold me back. In the end, the only fate that awaits the Tower Master is death." The Tower Master is well aware of what the truth is. I am not speaking any alarmist words. I ask the Tower Master to consider this carefully before making a decision. The Tower Master had a calm expression. At the very least, it was impossible to see any ripples in his heart. This was normal. Otherwise, if his mind was thrown into chaos by just a few words, that would be far too unbearable. In the end, the Tower Master of the 13th Tower was the most powerful person in the world. One of the most powerful people in the world. Perhaps he couldn't compare to the invincible Emperor Qin, but the Tower Master definitely had formidable methods in his hands. It wasn't just the white jade capital that could force Emperor Qin to patiently endure. "Goliath Sovereign, you are quite eloquent. I must admit that what you say is reasonable." The Tower Master slowly spoke, a sharp light blooming in his eyes. "But I still refuse to answer your question. This matter involves the cultivation system of my human race. It is not something that can be compromised. Goliath Sovereign, please leave. I won't send you off." Shwa, the Tower Master vanished from sight. An invisible repulsive strength erupted, wrapping around Chinyu. He frowned, a thoughtful look on his face. The Tower Master's reaction was a bit too extreme. Although his words just now were rejecting Chinyu, it seemed as if he were speaking to someone else, or perhaps he was speaking to the Tower Master himself. Thinking of this, a sharp light bloomed in Chinyu's eyes. He gave up on resisting the repulsive strength and allowed himself to be shaken away. His field of vision twisted. In the next moment, Chinyu appeared 10,000 miles away from the 13th tower. He took a step back and steadied himself. He looked down at his feet, a faint smile on his lips. A jade slip was lying peacefully in the dirt. He lifted his hand and grasped it. The jade slip fell into his hand, and he probed it with his divine sense. A moment later, Chinyu exerted some strength in his fingers and crushed the jade slip to pieces. A thoughtful look appeared in his eyes. The human cultivation system behind the 13th tower was the white jade capital, and the white jade capital was created by the human cultivation system. For the first time, Chinyu learned that there wasn't just one white jade capital, but a total of 9 white jade capital. They were spread out in various places to stabilize the destiny of humanity. Where the desolate domain was, there was one of these white jade capital. Because of the existence of the eternal sea, the human cultivation system had some sort of fear towards them, so they hadn't destroyed the barbarians in a single go. Otherwise, with the massive disparity in strength between the two races, the strength of any one of the white jade capital would have been enough to completely destroy the barbarians. Chinyu took a deep breath and then let it out. He suppressed his thoughts, his complexion still grim. He suddenly remembered that the little blue lamp had once said that there were 9 blazing suns in the world, and the white jade capital refined by humanity also happened to be 9. Could there be some sort of connection here? It was fine if his guess was wrong, But if it was true, then the strength of the human cultivation system was likely beyond his imagination. It seemed as if there was some sort of connection between the 9 blazing suns. Qin Yu thought for a moment. He said in a low voice, "Little blue lamp, I already know what you guessed just now, but it shouldn't be like this." After a brief pause, the little blue lamp continued. "The blazing sun is supreme and unsurpassed, illuminating the entire world. All things are bathed in its light, and no one can defy it." Qin Yu thought for a moment. He said, "But how do you explain your existence? If a blazing sun illuminates the world, how could it be so easily shattered?" The little blue lamp fell silent, as if it were considering Qin Yu's question. After a long time, a thought fluctuation sounded out. "There is only one possibility." A sharp light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. "Other blazing suns took action." "That's right," the little blue lamp said. "After entering the human cultivation system, if possible, I should find a white jade capital. If I approach it, perhaps I can find some truths." Qin Yu rubbed his face and bitterly smiled. "I'll try my best. White jade capital, hee. If it isn't necessary, I really don't want to approach it. It's just too dangerous." The little blue lamp said, "We'll act according to circumstances." Its thought fluctuations scattered. Qin Yu bitterly smiled. Although the little blue lamp had denied Qin Yu's suspicions and judged that it was the other blazing suns that had taken action and caused the shattering event to occur. But its final warning seemed to have a different meaning to it. White jade capital. Perhaps he really would have to make a trip there. Shwa! Qin Yu stepped out. In the next moment, he entered Star Sea Grotto Heaven. The ancestral court sensed something. Endless strength boiled within the starry sea, instantly condensing into a Goliath sovereign phantom that supported the heavens and earth. Its pressure was like the sea, looking down on all directions. Within Star Sea Grotto Heaven, the countless barbarians that had migrated here fell to their knees, fanatical looks on their faces. Goliath sovereign! Goliath sovereign! They could already feel that after the world suppression was broken, they had become stronger and they had a higher degree of recognition towards Qin Yu. The most direct change was that the amount of the power of Joss flames rose once more. This caused Qin Yu to be enlightened. Besides the previous 3 options, there was actually another option to increase the speed of cultivating the great Tao of Joss flames. The more devout the believers were, the more power of Joss flames they would receive and the more benefits he would receive. With this in mind, Qin Yu controlled the Goliath sovereign phantom to speak. Its voice billowed through the starry sea. "We have subdued the ancient remnant races and the monster race. They will submit to us, and we will resist the great Qin Empire together. The 13th tower will also withdraw. We will maintain a neutral position against the barbarians." Shwa! Shwa! The eyes of the barbarians suddenly brightened. The ancient remnant races. That was the former master of the desolate domain world. They were incomparably strong and had a deep background. Emperor Qin had chased them for many years, but he had no way of exterminating them. There was no need to mention the monster race. Even though they had submitted to the desolate race, they were still formidable. In particular, there was a rumor that the monster race's true sovereign blood moon had been resurrected, reborn from the monster moon. This time, after obtaining the submission of the ancient remnant races and monster race, the barbarian strength had risen dramatically. But in comparison, the 13th tower stance was even more important. It didn't need to do anything. But with the 13th tower's strength and status, its attitude was destined to have a great impact on the world. If many people wanted to kick the barbarians while they were down, they would have to consider things carefully. And all of this was fought for by His Majesty, the barbarian sovereign. Without a doubt, this would give the barbarians on the battlefield a great amount of breathing room. Long live His Majesty! Countless barbarians roared out in excitement. Qin Yu smiled. He could feel an even purer and more Joss flame power gathering towards him. Shwa! With a step, he entered the barbarian ancestral court. The great shamans that had gathered here had already dispersed. They scattered around the barbarian tribes to resist the invasions of the various countries. Meng Shan's great shaman was still here, adjusting the situation on the battlefield. At the same time, he was prepared to answer His Majesty, the barbarian sovereign's questions. "Greetings, Your Majesty." He respectfully bowed, a look of respect on his face. "Everything you do will be known by the entire barbarian race. We will chant Your Majesty's name and carry out your will." Qin Yu said, "Meng Shan, this is all I can do. As for the frontal battlefield with the various countries, I will need you to deal with it." After a moment of thought, he grasped his hand and the ancestral court scepter fell into it. "Next, in order to accelerate my cultivation of the Joss Flame Great Tao, I will cross the Eternal Sea and enter the human cultivation system to seek opportunities. During this period of time, the ancestral court will be handed over to you. I already have the authority to control it. No matter what, you must stabilize the situation and do not disappoint me." Great Shaman Meng Shan's body shook. He fell to his knees. "Yes, Your Majesty." He received the scepter with both hands but didn't stand up. "Your Majesty, I beg you to change your decision. Do not put yourself in danger. The human cultivation system is too strong. Over the years, according to the clues I have gathered, I have come to a conclusion that the current human cultivation system is not something the barbarians can contend with. But I don't know why, but they haven't truly gone all out. Otherwise, the barbarians would have been exterminated long ago. Your Majesty, it is far too dangerous to enter the other side of the sea. If there is an accident, the barbarians will truly be beyond redemption." Qin Yu waved his hand. "I have already made my decision. Meng Shan, there is no need to say anything more. Accelerating the cultivation of the Joss Flame Great Tao and igniting it as soon as possible was the only way to survive. Otherwise, death was only a matter of time. Qin, you would never give up." Great Shaman Meng Shan forced a smile. "Your Majesty, please take care of yourself. The barbarians cannot bear the price of losing Your Majesty." I know. Qin Yu stood up. "How much do you know about the Eternal Sea?" "After I make some preparations, I will leave." Great Shaman Meng Shan said, "Your Majesty, among the barbarians, the one who knows the most about the Eternal Ocean is Great Shaman Earthly Fire. In the past, he had fought his way into the Eternal Ocean and fought against a human cultivator." Qin Yu's eyes brightened. "Very good. Go and invite Earth Fire over." "Yes, Your Majesty." Great Shaman Meng Shan turned and left. Soon he hurried back with Great Shaman Earth Fire following behind him. "Greetings, Your Majesty." He respectfully bowed. Qin Yu said, "Earth Fire, tell me everything you know about the Eternal Sea. Do not hide anything." "Yes." Great Shaman Earth Fire respectfully said. After a moment of hesitation, he spoke of everything he knew. To summarize it simply, the Eternal Sea was an indestructible moat. It seemed like an endless sea, but if one truly entered it, they would discover that it could be very small or infinitely large. As he spoke of this, Great Shaman Earthfire's face palpitated. "In the past, I fought with a human cultivator and was lost in the depths of the Eternal Sea. I nearly died there, but I was lucky enough to escape." Qin Yu's eyes flashed. "The Eternal Sea is very dangerous?" Great Shaman Earthfire nodded. "Yes, there are many creatures in the Eternal Sea that do not exist in this world, and each one is incomparably powerful. In the past, I encountered a giant turtle that was 10,000 miles long. Its roars were like thunder, and it could release endless thunder attacks that tore apart the skies for 100,000 miles. At that time, if it weren't for this giant turtle encountering a silver-winged bird that came flying out of nowhere, there would have been no way for me to escape." His eyes revealed worry. "Your Majesty, if you wish to enter the Eternal Sea, you must be careful. That is a place that cannot be measured by common sense." Qin Yu said in a low voice, "A place that cannot be measured by common sense?" I must take a look. Chapter 1814. The 9 regions of the Great Desolate were an island. It was just that it was very, very large, so large that the countless creatures that lived here had never realized this. But this was the truth. Qin Yu stood in the extreme west of the western savages. In front of him was a boundless sea with no end in sight. This was the eternal sea. Normally, with a true sovereign's cultivation, he could descend with a thought. But standing by the sea, Qin Yu found that this was impossible. He even felt an unknown fear in his heart. It seemed that using a true sovereign's method in the eternal sea would be extremely dangerous. Thinking of what the Earth Fire Shaman had said, Qin Yu's expression turned grave. He was silent for a moment, then shouted, "By Fei Fei!" After a few breaths, space trembled, and she walked out. "My lord, you summoned me." Qin Yu said, "I will step into the eternal sea and go to the other side. Go to Xianying and show yourself. Let the Qin Emperor sense your aura." His eyes were calm. "Do you understand what I mean?" Bai Fei said, "I understand. Make the Qin Emperor afraid to come to the savage battlefield." Worry appeared on her face. "My lord, the eternal sea is eternal. You can cross it in one step, but you can also be trapped in it forever. Please be careful." Qin Yu nodded. "I understand." Bai Fei bowed and took a step back. She would immediately go to Xianying to complete Qin Yu's task. Looking up at the eternal sea, Qin Yu raised his hand, and the mountain river sword appeared. He threw it forward, and the mountain river sword expanded in the wind. In the blink of an eye, it became the size of a door. Qin Yu jumped up and sat cross-legged on the sword. The sword hummed. It flew across the sea at a low altitude, tearing through the water and leaving a white wave behind it. In the coastal area, Qin Yu saw the human cultivator's ship and the barbarians fighting. This was the first time he saw a war between 2 races. It was cruel and cold. In the eyes of both sides, there was only a deep hatred that could never be resolved. It was formed from the blood of both races. Compared to the savage battlefield, the war between the barbarians and the human cultivators was even more bloody. Qin Yu did not intervene. The mountain river sword rushed into the sea, avoiding the line of sight of both sides, and continued into the depths of the eternal sea. Soon, the sounds of battle disappeared. All that was left was the monotonous and dull horizon. Above his head, the 9 suns were still hanging high, sprinkling down endless light. But now, Qin Yu found it difficult to feel any warmth from this light. It was as if the 9 suns above his head were just reflections. He raised his head to look at the sky and then at the boundless sea in front of him. He seemed to be deep in thought. However, the good news was that up until this moment, it was still calm and no accidents had occurred. The eternal sea was incomparably quiet. It was like a peaceful old man, calmly staring at Qin Yu. Night fell. Sitting cross-legged on the mountain and river sword, Qin Yu's heart suddenly shrank, and he felt a sense of fear. Swish, when he opened his eyes, there was a full moon above his head. However, the moonlight could not shine down. It was as if the moment it neared the eternal sea, it was swallowed up. Boundless darkness covered the eternal sea. This didn't affect Qin Yu at all, but his complexion became even more dignified. Rumble the seawater began to churn. The eternal sea, which had been quiet for an entire day, tore off its mask of a kind old grandpa when night fell, revealing its ruthless side. The violent waves brought with them a terrifying power, rushing over from all directions, wanting to destroy everything. However, these huge waves similarly couldn't affect Qin Yu. When they came within 1,000 feet of him, they would directly calm down and disappear. Thus, in the pitch-black sea, amidst the raging waves, there was an additional mirror-like place. Looking closely, one could see that at the edge of this mirror-like, there were countless tiny splashes of water exploding at the same time. That was the sword breath of the mountain and river sword. It split into countless rays, cutting through all the surging waves and canceling out the power of the seawater. Only then did the calm scene appear. The waves became even larger, and the eternal sea became even more violent. The mountain and river sword let out a soft hum, and the sword hum could still be heard clearly amidst the roaring of the seawater. Qin Yu frowned slightly, not because of the violent eternal sea in front of him, but because he sensed a dangerous aura. However, the true danger still hadn't arrived. It was like the two sides were already close together, nearly facing each other. But there was a thin layer of paper that separated them from each other. They were close to each other, but they were also separated by two completely different worlds. Unless one took a single step forward, the two sides would never meet again. The darkness of night began to fade away. Light appeared on the horizon. 9 suns rose up, dispersing the darkness and causing the wild eternal sea to enter a sage mode once more. Beneath the sunlight, a gentle breeze blew, and the seawater was gentle. It was like a child with only a layer of mischievous, shimmering waves that constantly rippled. One couldn't help but wonder if everything they experienced before was just an illusion. Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. He didn't relax at all because of the current tranquility. The day passed and the night arrived. The eternal sea became wild once more. Qin Yu sat cross-legged on the mountain and river sword. He was like a bystander that didn't involve himself, quietly watching the tumbling and roaring eternal sea. Although the scene in front of him seemed terrifying, in truth it was impossible for it to cause any damage to Qin Yu. Another night passed. What followed was a new day, a repeat of the previous day. It was incomparably docile during the day and wild at night. In front of Qin Yu, the eternal sea constantly changed its face. Soon, half a month passed, and during this period of time, Qin Yu observed the 9 suns in the skies as well as the position of the full moon in the night sky. Finally, he determined something. The eternal sea was small, but it could also be infinitely large. Only now did Qin Yu understand the meaning of these words, and right now he had fallen into the infinite vastness of the eternal sea. If he didn't change, he would forever remain in the eternal sea. He would experience the tranquility of the day and the brutality of the night like an endless samsara. Letting out a deep breath, Qin Yu stood up. The hesitation in his eyes was completely suppressed at this moment. Since he had no choice but to take this step, there was no need to wait any longer. To spend half a month in the eternal sea was already an incomparably extravagant luxury. Qin Yu lifted his hand and put away the mountain and river sword. The surrounding heaven-shaking waves suddenly lost their suppression and rushed forwards. Facing the waves, his expression was calm. He took a step forwards. The realm of true sovereigns could be reached with a single step. But Qin Yu's step was different. The moment he stepped forwards, he passed through that untouchable barrier that truly existed. He had entered the true eternal sea. Or, to be more precise, he had entered the hidden world of the eternal sea. In front of him were towering mountains that towered into the skies. They were hundreds of thousands or millions of feet high, towering into the clouds. It was impossible to see the peaks of these mountains. These were astonishingly thick ancient trees. Each one would require tens of thousands of people to wrap their arms around it. The massive canopies of these trees blocked out the sky. If a single leaf fell down, it would be enough to crush a young man to death. Crash! The sound of rapid movement was accompanied by the sound of falling leaves being stepped on. Qin Yu turned to see a 40 to 50-foot large ant rushing towards him. Its compound eyes flashed with an icy cold light. It clearly regarded him as prey. In truth, this wasn't a strange scene. Qin Yu revealed a complex expression. He flicked his sleeves and sent the ant flying away. With a loud dong sound, the ant heavily smashed into the ground, crushing countless dried branches and leaves. The earth shook for a while. Of course, this was only to Qin Yu. As for the ancient trees around the ant, not even a single leaf shook. The ant struggled to turn around. Its compound eyes revealed fear, and it turned to flee without hesitation. But the moment it moved, a bright red tongue shot out like lightning. It pierced through the ant's body and pulled it into its mouth, chewing on it. The skies darkened and a massive shadow covered the area. This was a 100,000-foot large pangolin. Its body was covered in icy cold scales that shimmered with a metallic luster. After swallowing the ant in 2 or 3 bites, the pangolin's icy cold eyes fell on Chinyu. Perhaps it was because his body was too small and he wasn't attractive enough. Or perhaps it was because Chinyu easily flipped over the ant that the pangolin felt threatened. But it didn't attack. With a loud rumbling sound, it vanished into the jungle. Without accident, he had come to this place. In the past, in order to have the cosmic sea-cross bell recognize him as its master, Chinyu's divine sense had descended into a different world. This was a place where everything was magnified countless times over, a place where incomparably terrifying demons and gods had descended. But today, his entire being had entered this place. The cosmic sea-cross bell crossed the sea. A sharp light flashed in Chinyu's eyes. With a thought, the cosmic sea-cross bell in his soul space seemed to be touched by a finger. It began to ring on its own. The bell rang without a sound. The surroundings were quiet, without any change from before. This caused Chinyu to frown. Could it be that he had guessed wrong? And as Chinyu touched the cosmic sea-cross bell, in the distant sea region, great waves rose up. A pair of giant eyes rose up from the sea. They stared closely at Chinyu, shock and joy in their eyes. Roar! With a loud roar, the great purple dragon shot into the skies, howling as it hurtled forwards. As for the great purple dragon's actions, it was like a torch had been tossed into a dry, winter grassland. In an instant, a great fire ignited, turning into a prairie fire. With a deep roar, a mountain peak shattered. A great beast that had been hiding here for countless years revealed its fangs. It waved its claws, tearing through the air. It clawed at the great purple dragon, wanting to tear off a piece of its flesh. Bang! With a heaven-shaking explosion, the great purple dragon whipped its tail and sent the great beast flying away. The great beast tumbled in countless circles, crushing mountains and destroying countless ancient trees. It was unknown how many other life forms were crushed into meat patties, dying miserable deaths on the spot. But this strike wasn't able to cause too much damage to the great beast. Its defenses were astonishingly strong. It turned around and chased after the great purple dragon. One soared in the skies, and the other galloped on the earth. With a single step, it crossed mountains and rivers, causing the entire world to tremble. But this was only the beginning. The great purple dragon, flying in the skies, suddenly roared out loud. It opened its mouth and spat out dragon flames, directly evaporating the clouds in front of it. A golden-winged roc appeared in front of it. Its wings spread out, seeming to cover the skies and cover tens of thousands of miles. This was truly a feather that could cover the world. Its golden eyes locked onto the great purple dragon, blazing with greed. It let out a cry, and the air vibrated and buzzed at high speed, condensing into transparent wind blades. Each of them was tens of thousands of meters long, and they covered the entire space. The golden-winged roc flapped its wings, and the wind blades howled out, hurtling towards the great purple dragon. It wanted to dismember it on the spot and turn it into a feast. Roar! The great purple dragon roared. The countless souls of nothingness that made up its body each began to emit a speck of light. As these countless specks of light gathered together, it was like a great sun had risen from the ground. A rich and dazzling light covered the great purple dragon, as if it were wearing a suit of armor of light. It didn't dodge. Instead, it allowed the peerless wind blades to strike its body. With the armor of light, it directly passed through the attack of the wind blades. A dignified look appeared in the golden-winged roc's golden eyes. It could sense that something was wrong with the great purple dragon. It seemed to be in a hurry to rush somewhere. What did it want to do? And as the golden-winged roc was lost in thought, another great beast arrived. This was an incomparably massive, three-headed ape that towered into the clouds. As it breathed, it emitted the sound of wind and thunder. At this time, it was wildly running across the earth. It leapt onto the summit of a 1,000,000-foot-high mountain and crushed the mountain peak beneath its feet. The three-headed ape's massive body soared into the skies, crashing into the light. Its arms spread out in an attempt to grab the great purple dragon. At the same time, the three-headed ape opened its mouth, revealing 10,000-foot-long fangs. As long as it was bitten down, it would be able to tear the great purple dragon in half. However, it was at this moment that an enraged cry rang out. The three-headed giant ape's 6 eyes were filled with shock and fury, and it tried to dodge to the side. However, 2 of the tail feathers pierced through its body, and it was nailed to the ground, letting out a pained roar. The one who had attacked was the golden-winged roc in the skies. Now, beneath its wings, it was like an eternal night had descended, plunging the earth into darkness. It was because of this that the great purple dragon that was covered in armor of light was even more dazzling. But now, the three-headed giant ape that had attacked was actually knocked to the ground by it. Roar! Roar! Angry roars sounded out from all directions. Towering figures that supported the heavens appeared in everyone's line of sight. In this world that seemed like the land of divinity and demons, all the slumbering great beasts had been awakened by the great purple dragon. Their eyes stubbornly locked onto the great purple dragon, and the roars from their mouths became even louder. It wasn't yet time to hunt and eat. For the great purple dragon to suddenly rush out of the sea was a pleasant surprise for them. But now the golden-winged roc was protecting the great purple dragon, not allowing the great beasts to hunt it down and divide its food. It immediately became the target of all. The golden-winged roc's wings could cover the stars, but it didn't fear this at all. Its golden eyes were icy cold, and its cries became even sharper and colder. Its unyielding will was transmitted to all the great beasts. They gradually fell silent. Although they were filled with anger and unwillingness, they didn't dare to disobey. This was because the golden-winged roc in the skies was the strongest of all the great beasts in this world. There were no great beasts that dared to oppose it. Within the armor of light, a trace of hesitation flashed in the great purple dragon's eyes. It sensed the roc's thoughts, but it soon vanished from sight. After it rushed out of the sea, it no longer had a choice. It could either find the person it had been waiting for, or it could be cleanly divided up and eaten by the great beasts. And this sort of being hunted down and eaten again and again was something that the great purple dragon didn't want to experience again. It wanted to truly live. Roar! With a roar, the great purple dragon sped up. In the skies, the golden-winged roc's eyes were icy cold, but there was a hint of joy in them. It flapped its wings and followed behind the great purple dragon. At the same time, it deterred the covetous eyes from attacking it. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The earth trembled and rumbled. Great beasts wildly ran. They stubbornly followed behind, waiting for an opportunity. The entire different world fell into chaos. Luckily, after the world was destroyed, it would soon repair itself. Otherwise, no matter how vast this magnificent different world was, it would still be smashed to pieces by the great beasts. Chapter 1815. Qin Yu's complexion was dignified. He looked into the distant horizon. Loud rumbling sounds rang out, like thunderclaps that shook the world. The clouds churned. Even from a great distance, one could still feel an incomparably powerful pressure. Roar rang out above their heads. The earth trembled and cracked as a gigantic beast strode over. Its body was millions of meters long, and it was even more majestic than a mountain. With a single step, it could cross an endless distance. Without pausing, the great beast rushed off into the distance. And where it went was where Qin Yu was looking. Something had happened. Although he didn't know what was happening, It was best to stay as far away as possible. After all, even with Qin Yu's current cultivation, he could feel the pressure. What he was thinking about now was how to leave this place, cross the eternal sea, and enter the realm of human cultivators. Thus, Qin Yu didn't want to join in on the fun. If the giant beasts of this terrifying different world wanted to fight to the death, he would let them do as they pleased. But soon, the complexion of Qin Yu, who had been watching from the sidelines, changed. This was because the rolling clouds at the end of his line of sight seemed to be moving towards his location. Frowning, he restrained his aura and dodged to the side. Something's wrong. A moment later, Qin Yu came to a sudden stop. He turned to look at the fog behind him and then at his surroundings. There were a few large mountains that propped up the sky, and they were majestic and magnificent as they pierced into the clouds, displaying a majestic aura. But right now, Qin Yu wasn't in the mood to appreciate the scenery. He was mainly using them to determine his position. The cloud was following him. Swish Qin Yu's feet moved, and he changed directions. This attempt allowed him to confirm his previous thoughts. And during this period of time, Qin Yu encountered 2 more giant beasts. One was a giant fish with 8 wings that flapped its wings in the air, and the other was a silver-white heavenly wolf that leapt across mountains and rivers. Their goal was the distant clouds. What was going on? Qin Yu thought back to when he had touched the cosmic Seacross bell just now. Could it be because of it? But that wasn't right. Even now, the cosmic Seacross bell hadn't moved at all. Not the slightest bit of reaction. Qin Yu tried to awaken its consciousness, but didn't obtain a response. After thinking about it for a bit, he temporarily suppressed it. Qin Yu looked up into the distance at the rapidly moving cloud. He took a deep breath and took out the mountain river sword. Puff the sword peak instantly sank into the ground, creating a large hole. He leaped into it. If it was a blessing, it wasn't a curse. If it was a curse, it couldn't be avoided. Since he couldn't get rid of it, he could only face it. However, hiding underground was at least a layer of obstruction. If the situation was troublesome or out of his ability to deal with it, he could take the opportunity to escape and slowly come up with a plan. When he had first spoken to the little blue lamp, Qin Yu's heroic spirit had reached the clouds. He was a true sovereign and had also stepped into the great road of Joss Flame. He was indeed strong and had the confidence to look down on others. But after leaving the desolate region and entering the eternal sea, Qin Yu wouldn't be careless at all. This world was very big, and there were all kinds of variables and accidents, just like this alternate world in the eternal sea. So what if there was a true emperor? He was only qualified to step into it. The pressure he felt from the clouds was the best evidence. It was best to be careful. After entering deep underground, Qin Yu held his breath and looked upwards. Although there was a thick earth separating them, this wasn't a problem for Qin Yu. He could still clearly sense everything that was occurring outside. Rumble the sound of wind and thunder filled the air. The earth began to shake and rumble. Countless great beasts galloped across the earth. In the clouds there was a cry. Qin Yu's complexion changed because he wasn't unfamiliar with this sound. When he first arrived in this alternate world with his divine sense, he had personally experienced it. Who? Flames appeared out of thin air. The high temperature burned away the clouds, causing them to turn into nothingness. A golden-winged rock hid within. Its wings were wide enough to cover the galaxy, and its incomparably sharp golden eyes were able to pierce through all. Beneath the golden-winged rock was a giant purple dragon. Its body was incomparably large, stretching for tens of thousands of miles. Qin Yu wasn't unfamiliar with this giant purple dragon. In the past, he had personally witnessed another one being slain. When the cosmic Seacross bell recognized him as its master, the golden soul of nothingness he obtained came from that dead giant purple dragon. This was because its 10,000-mile body was composed of countless palm-sized souls of nothingness. The 3-headed ape had a fierce expression, and its chest was stained with blood. Even so, it found it hard to conceal the endless cruelty in its eyes. The scales on the pangolin's body had turned pale gold. Its eyes were bloodshot as it stared at the purple dragon. Each step it took caused the ground to tremble. The deep orchid jellyfish floated in the air, its countless tentacles floating in the air. A blue fog lingered around its body. Everything that fell into this fog would instantly decay into powder. In addition, there were countless other types of giant beasts. Each of them was 1,000,000 feet tall, and their auras were terrifying existences comparable to divinities and demons. Now that they were gathered together, a chaotic and cruel aura wove together. Wherever they went, mountains and rivers would collapse and rivers would collapse. Even the skies shook, constantly breaking apart. Suddenly, the giant purple dragon roared. It came to a stop and looked at the ground, excitement in its eyes. In the next moment, Qin Yu was horrified. The cold golden eyes of the golden-winged rock were coldly staring at him. Even though he was deep underground right now, he still felt as if he had been locked onto. With a cry, the golden-winged rock's eyes erupted with a golden light. In this world, everything within its range fell into a state of stillness. The rules of space and time came to a standstill. It was like an extreme cold had arrived, instantly freezing all movement and turning the space into a giant block of ice. The pangolin, whose body was covered in golden scales, roared like a bull. Yellow light gushed out from its 4 limbs, and the ground beneath it instantly collapsed. Then the temperature rose crazily, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a sea of magma. Qin Yu was hiding underground, trying to leave some room for himself. But now he could see with his own eyes just how terrifying these giant beasts were. Besides their astonishing size, they also possessed all sorts of powerful supernatural abilities. The mountain and river sword cried out. An invisible sword aura erupted, covering Qin Yu and isolating him from the magma. Qin Yu held upwards. He broke through the red magma and appeared in front of the many giant beasts. He was instantly locked onto. The golden-winged rock's pupils shrank. It actually spoke. "I remember you." Its voice was like a thunderclap. It stubbornly stared at Qin Yu, revealing a fierce and excited expression. "In the past, you were the one who escaped from my hands and stole away my golden spirit soul." The eyes of the giant beasts turned blazing hot, as if they wanted to roast Qin Yu on the spot. But at this time, the purple dragon suddenly roared. It crazily rushed towards Qin Yu, its eyes filled with ecstasy. It was unknown what it thought of, but the golden-winged rock suddenly spread its wings. Its wings covered the sky, sealing off all directions. A terrifying sealing power descended. It was as if the 3 mountains and 5 seas had been moved in that instant, suppressing everything. The surface of the purple dragon's body began to burn with flames. These flames were an incomparably deep purple, blazing and decisive. Today, at this step, if they didn't succeed, they would die. All of the souls of nothingness chose to give it their all. The purple flames possessed an inconceivable ability. They could directly burn away the suppressive strength released by the golden-winged rock, burning a path through them. But unfortunately, what it needed to face today was not just the golden-winged rock. There were also over 100 giant beasts, all of them looking at it as if it were barbecued pork. Roar! The 3-headed ape roared. It clenched its fists and smashed them together. With a heaven-shaking explosion, a net of thunder exploded, directly sucking in the purple dragon. With loud crackling sounds, lightning exploded, wrapping around the purple dragon like giant chains. Being bound by the chains of thunder was only the beginning. The deep blue jellyfish trembled around it. It actually ignored the suppression of the golden-winged rock and appeared directly above the purple dragon. The deep blue light that lingered around its body sprinkled down like snowflakes, each one causing a tongue of fire to vanish and annihilating the flames around the purple dragon's body. The 8 sky-propping spiders spat out a great white net. This net didn't fear the burning of the flames at all. It passed through the sea of flames and fell onto the purple dragon's body. there was the sound of rotting flesh and blood. This white net corroded the souls of nothingness on the surface and sank into the purple dragon's body. Giant beasts attacked one after another, wanting to stop the purple dragon. But at this time the golden-winged rock's eyes had already fallen onto Chinyu. Its wings flapped, and the space around Chinyu instantly shattered. Endless terrifying strength gathered towards a single point and collapsed, like a great mouth swallowing up the entire region. Boom! A terrifying sword aura erupted, condensing into a towering sword that pierced through the darkness. Chinyu walked out, but his expression was incomparably solemn. He didn't relax in the slightest. It wasn't just because of the golden-winged rock strength, but also because of the terrifying giant beasts in front of him. Each of them had the strength of an Emperor Realm expert. This was inconceivable. One man, one sword. No matter how confident Chinyu was in himself, he was well aware that unless he made a breakthrough and ignited the Joss Flame Great Tao, he would be able to slaughter his way out. Otherwise, he would undoubtedly die. As for escaping, Chinyu gave up when he saw the golden-winged rock's pair of wings that could feed tens of thousands of people. Roar! Roar! The purple dragon roared and struggled with all its might. It approached Chinyu, its eyes full of anxiety. It was strong indeed. It was able to struggle even under the suppression of the golden-winged rock and the other giant beasts. Chinyu looked up, his eyes meeting the purple dragon's. The moment their gazes met, the cosmic sea-cross bell in his soul space, the earth shook. Clang, 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 clang. There was actually a sound this time, but it was very weak. It wasn't even worth mentioning to the terrifying giant beasts in front of him. But the moment the bell rang, all the giant beasts, including the golden-winged rock, revealed pained expressions. Their eyes were filled with fear, as if they had seen something extremely terrifying. Roar! Roar! The purple dragon struggled even more fiercely. The purple flames around its body surged. It was on the verge of going berserk and losing control. Chinyu's eyes brightened. He was now certain that the scene in front of him was caused by the cosmic sea-cross bell. In other words, this purple dragon was coming for him. From the dragon's eyes, Chinyu could read ecstasy, excitement, anger, unwillingness, despair, all sorts of emotions intertwined together. But none of them were negative towards Chinyu. Help it. Chinyu made his decision. He raised the mountain river sword, which vibrated violently. It could feel Chinyu's thoughts and also realize the situation it was facing. Swish! The sword slashed out. This sword went straight for the purple dragon, but before it could touch it, a terrifying collision occurred. The power that imprisoned and suppressed the giant dragon was directly slashed apart by the mountain and river sword, and a path was created. The purple dragon fiercely roared, breaking free of its shackles. Its great tail swept out, stirring up wild tides and causing the void to shake with a terrifying strength. The golden-winged rock angrily cried out. It swept out its wings to stabilize itself, but the other giant beasts that were chasing it were forcefully pushed back. The purple dragon had never erupted with such a formidable strength before. To increase its strength to such a degree required a great deal of damage. But it was also because of this that the dragon's determination was clear. The golden-winged rock tried to block it, but it was already too late. The 10,000-mile-long purple dragon crashed into Chinyu. Compared to the two of them, Chinyu was more like a weak and tiny ant. But as the two collided, there was no sound at all, and no fluctuations of strength were released. The moment the purple dragon touched Chinyu, it vanished from sight like an illusory shadow. That's right, it vanished as if it had never appeared. In the next moment, within Chinyu's soul space, the cosmic sea-cross bell that had been silent for many years suddenly began to emit light. A purple dragon that had shrunk countless times appeared on the surface of the heavily damaged bell, constantly swimming up and down. And as this happened, the cosmic sea-cross bell began to repair itself at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was clearly a good thing. But right now, Qin Yu didn't have the mind to pay too much attention to this. He glanced over it and then drew back his divine sense. Whoosh! With a sword cry, Qin Yu leapt onto the mountain river sword and turned to leave. What nonsense! The purple dragon was gone. Even an idiot would know that this was related to him. Now, the eyes of these giant beasts were so fierce that they wished they could tear Qin Yu to shreds. If he didn't run away, would he just stay here and wait for death? Kill him! The golden-winged roc roared. It was enraged that the purple dragon had escaped right under its nose. But this wasn't the key point. What was most important was the sound of a bell emitting from Qin Yu's body just now. Some ancient memories sealed deep within its bloodline were gradually being unsealed, causing it to feel endless fear. So, Qin Yu had to die. He absolutely could not live. Bang! The golden-winged roc fiercely flapped its wings. Its body blotted out the skies, and it instantly vanished. In the next moment, it had caught up to Qin Yu. Puff! Puff! Hundreds and thousands of terrifying wind blades slashed towards him. Qin Yu's pupils shrank. He lifted his hand and grasped forwards. A small world instantly descended. At the same time, his entire body sank down like a boulder. Bang! Bang! With every loud explosion, the wind blades slashed against the small world. The mountain river sword in Qin Yu's hand constantly shook. Bang! He crashed into the earth, directly plunging deep underground. The golden-winged roc was far too strong, and its speed was terrifying. If it flew in the sky, Qin Yu would never be able to escape. If he went underground, the chances of him escaping weren't high, but he could at least buy himself some time. The cosmic Seacross bell was repairing itself, and the golden-winged roc's extreme reaction seemed to prove something. So, Qin Yu didn't need to fight against these terrifying giant beasts alone. As long as he could last for a period of time, there would be a relatively clear result. An angry cry exploded above his head. It was the golden-winged roc. It hadn't lost sight of Qin Yu. At this moment, it suddenly flipped over. Countless feathers howled and shot towards it. They sank into the earth and instantly tore open a terrifying hole. At the same time, a power that froze everything descended once more. Everything fell into stillness. Qin Yu had become an immovable target. Chapter 1816. The mountain and river sword erupted. Trillions of sword breaths were released, instantly forming a small world that tore apart the still world. Qin Yu punched out a fist. The earth beneath him collapsed and shattered. He drew back to dodge. In the next moment, the golden-winged roc's feathers pierced through the earth, tearing open a terrifying hole that seemed to lead straight to hell. At this time, within Qin Yu's soul space, the cosmic Seacross bell trembled once more before vanishing from sight. Then it appeared in front of Qin Yu. Light flowed around it, revealing Mei Mei's figure. Or, to be more precise, this was her form after transforming. Her purple dress was a bit tight, fitting her curves. A giant purple dragon circled around it. This wasn't embroidered, but was constantly swimming about. As the dragon opened and closed its eyes, it exuded a solemn and dignified aura. At this time, Mei Mei wore a purple dragon robe and her eyes were closed. She was like an ancient empress descending, her momentum boundless. Shwa, she opened her eyes. Her gaze fell on Qin Yu. She stepped forwards and fell to one knee. I welcome your return. The golden-winged roc that had chased after them revealed a look of panic. It flapped its wings without hesitation, wanting to flee. With the speed of a roc, a single flap of its wings could cross hundreds of thousands of miles. In the blink of an eye, it was on the horizon. But now, the golden-winged roc let out a plaintive cry. The rapidly shaking air around it rapidly calmed down. An invisible net seemed to appear around it, trapping the golden-winged roc within. It desperately struggled, but the suppression from its bloodline and soul caused it to lose all strength, leaving it unable to move at all. If the golden-winged roc was like this, then those giant beasts from another world that had chased after it were even worse. The three-headed ape's eyes widened. It spat out the power of wind and thunder and then turned to flee. But before it could take 2 or 3 steps, its body that supported the heavens froze, as if all its strength had been sucked out of it. It fell to the ground, smashing through several mountains and crushing many rivers. The deep blue jellyfish roared like a great whale. Space twisted as it prepared to use its supernatural ability to teleport away. But before the shaking space could cover its figure, it was forcefully flattened. The deep blue jellyfish fell to the ground in distress. Massive wounds tore through its body, and blue blood gushed out. One by one, these ferocious and mighty beasts that could tear the heavens and the earth apart with a single move had now become limp shrimps that had fallen to the ground. Because as the cosmic Sea-Cross bell recovered and was repaired, they were all being suppressed. Qin, you could clearly sense everything that was occurring outside. Although he expected that the situation would change once the cosmic Sea-Cross bell was repaired, he never imagined that such a scene would occur. The cosmic Sea-Cross bell had used its own power to suppress all the otherworld behemoths. Looking at the incomparably respectful Mimi kneeling on the ground, Qin took a deep breath and said, "This just what is going on." Mimi said, "This world is your pasture. They are all your cattle and sheep." She raised her head, her fair and exquisite face revealing an icy coldness, like a piece of ancient cold jade. "They are too impudent." Qin frowned. "I don't understand what you're saying." Mei said, "That's because you are the ancient race's monarch. You are the ancient race's last hope in this world. All of this has been waiting for you to arrive, for you to awaken, for you to take back everything that the ancient race has lost. For this day, I have already slumbered for far too long, but luckily I followed my instincts and found you." She stood up. "Now, let me help you complete the final step and truly become the ancient race's monarch." Shwa, she vanished from sight. In the next moment, a great sun appeared in the skies of this terrifying different world. It shined with blinding brilliance. But if one looked carefully, they would discover that this wasn't a great sun, but a bell that had been enlarged countless times over. This was the perfectly repaired cosmic Sea-Cross bell. A giant purple dragon circled around the surface of the bell, constantly swimming about. Ding 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 dong, the ringing of the bell echoed out. With a loud rumble, it set off a tsunami of sound that spread throughout the entire different world in several breaths of time. All living beings in this world, no matter where they were, no matter where they were, no matter where they were, all felt fear and despair that rose from the depths of their hearts. This was because this ringing of the bell contained a will that came from their bloodline and soul, a will that they couldn't resist. With a heaven-shaking explosion, the entire earth was smashed apart. The surrounding area for tens of thousands of miles turned into an abyss. The golden-winged rock collapsed within, its wings desperately struggling, causing countless cracks to spread out. But it still couldn't soar into the skies. This was because its ability to soar above the highest heavens and freely wander through the world had been forcefully stripped away. Beneath the light of the cosmic Sea-Cross bell, the golden-winged rock's golden eyes revealed a look of pain. Faint traces of golden fog gushed out from its body, gathering towards the cosmic Sea-Cross bell above its head. It wasn't just the golden-winged rock. At this time, all the giant beasts and life forms in this different world were being suppressed and plundered. No, it would be more accurate to say that they were taking back the strength that they had stolen from them in the past. The strength that belonged to the ancient race. Qin rushed out from underground. Standing in the skies, he looked down at the world below, his heart shaking. Soon, his eyes couldn't help but fall onto the cosmic Sea-Cross bell above his head. His heart raced like thunder, making him feel a rush of excitement and urgency that he couldn't suppress. At this time, more or less of the golden fog that flew out from the giant beasts of this different world gathered into the cosmic Sea-Cross bell, gradually turning into a golden pool. After the outline of the golden pool appeared, the fog drilled into it. One could faintly hear the sound of flowing water. But at this time, countless memories that carried with them the aura of ancient years erupted within Qin Yu's mind. A pained expression appeared on his face as countless pictures appeared in front of him. Endless years ago, the ancient race had already predicted that their entire race would face such a fate. For the continuation of their race, their inheritance, and their future rise, they had made many preparations. The seeds that represented the future of their race were scattered out one at a time. At the same time, they left behind a pasture that belonged to the ancient race. They sealed away the strength of the ancient race here forever, waiting for their people to awaken in the future and return here to inherit everything of the ancient race. What happened was that when the cosmic Sea-Cross bell was damaged, the strength of the ancient race that was suppressed here spread out and was stolen by the life forms in the pasture. Thus, this terrifying different world was created. And now, Qin Yu was the only seed that the ancient race had sown, one that had smoothly grown. This was why Mimi had told him that this world was Qin Yu's pasture, and all these giant beasts were his cattle and sheep. And now, what the cosmic Sea-Cross bell was doing was taking back the strength of the ancient race from the giant beasts, gathering it together and fusing it into Qin Yu's body, helping him become the true king of the ancient race. Qin Yu lifted a hand and rubbed the point between his eyebrows, relieving the aching and swelling feeling. He looked at the cosmic Sea-Cross bell and then at the ground, at those giant beasts that were trembling in pain, but couldn't do anything. He suddenly realized something. Perhaps the damage to the cosmic Sea-Cross bell and the leakage of the ancient race's strength was all within the ancient race's expectations. In other words, all of this was likely intentional by the ancient race. This was because the strength of the ancient race that had been stolen wasn't too formidable at the start. But as these giant beasts continued to multiply and multiply, their numbers had reached an astonishing level. Once they were gathered together, it would be enough to help the juniors of the ancient race rise to inconceivable boundaries. Mimi appeared at Qin Yu's side. She respectfully said, "Your guess isn't correct." She looked at Qin Yu, a look of reminiscence in her eyes. In the past, after the ancient race sensed danger, they didn't have time to make too many arrangements. This pasture was their final chance, and no one was willing to risk it. After all, if the ancient race's strength were to leak out, once it was lost or perished, everything would be irreversible. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. What happened in the past, no matter what the truth was, has already been forever buried in the endless river of time. We are only guessing based on our own subjective thoughts. He looked at Mimi, his expression calm. Perhaps you just don't want to believe that the fact that you were injured in an accident and only awakened today was the will of the ancient race. Mimi fell silent. After a long time, she nodded. Perhaps that is the case, but that isn't important. This is because I belong to the ancient race, and it was the ancient race that created me. She lifted a hand and pointed at the cosmic Sea-Cross bell. When the strength of the ancient race is completely extracted, you can absorb it and transform into the king of the ancient race, possessing the formidable strength of the ancient race at their peak. Qin Yu nodded. He didn't deny this point, and an even more formidable strength was what he urgently needed. But the problem was whether or not the sudden appearance of a powerful ancient race would provoke even more unexpected troubles. After all, the ancient race had suffered a calamity back then, and they had almost been wiped out. This was all because of the blazing sun. He had no choice but to consider this point. As the saying goes, the more lice there are, the less itchy it will be. The reason was that the lice were not strong enough. It was better to avoid tigers and wolves that could bite off his neck in one bite if possible. Qin Yu voiced his worries. He said, "Don't worry, the meaning of my existence is to help the ancient race rise once more. After I recover, I will be able to conceal your aura. Then there's no problem." Qin Yu's eyes brightened. He looked forward to absorbing the strength of the ancient race and seeing just how powerful he would become. Just as Qin Yu was looking forward to absorbing the power of the ancient race beings, The gigantic beasts on the ground could feel the shadow of death descending upon them. Their bloodline and even their souls had inevitably been influenced by the power of the ancient race in the long history of reproduction. Now, the power that belonged to the ancient race had been extracted and stripped away. To them, death had arrived. The golden-winged rock revealed an unwilling look. It was so powerful, nearly standing at the peak of the world, but it had been trapped here forever. It had never taken a single step out to see the true world outside. And now it was about to die. Roar, roar, giant beasts roared out loud, filled with sorrow, fear, and despair. Chinyu saw all of this. His eyes flashed, and he said, "Mimi, if I absorb the strength of the ancient race, will they all die?" Mimi's eyes were icy cold. They offended their superiors. They all deserved to die. Chinyu said, "I have stepped into the Joss flame, great Tao." Mimi frowned. "You plan on keeping them as your believers?" Chinyu nodded. The submission of powerhouses could provide a formidable assistance in cultivating the Joss flame, great Tao. There were over 100 giant beasts in front of him, and there were thousands or even tens of thousands of times more giant beasts in this entire different world. If he could obtain their submission, that would be no different from helping Chinyu establish another divine kingdom and obtaining a formidable Joss flame, great Tao. Mimi said, "They all have the stolen strength of the ancient race within them. If you want to keep their lives, there will be no way for them to transform and become a true king of the ancient race. I ask that you carefully consider this point." Chinyu said, "If I become a king of the ancient race, will I be able to kill the long-lived species?" Mimi shook her head. "No, but it will be enough for you to contend with the long-lived species, or even be stronger than them." Chinyu said, "The ancient race suffered a great calamity in the past. The fundamental reason was that our ancestors tried to establish their own divine kingdom and ignite the Joss flame great Tao, so I believe that the path I am taking now is the correct one." He stepped forwards. With a thought, the phantom of a towering Goliath sovereign appeared in the world. It was like a divine mountain that supported the heavens, releasing a boundless aura. And above the Goliath sovereign's head, there was a burning great Tao that twisted and turned, displaying its unsurpassed momentum. "I am the king of the ancient race, the true master of this world. You have stolen the strength of the ancient race, and that is why you were able to cultivate to this day. Today, I should have taken back the strength of the ancient race, and you would have all died. All of your years of cultivation would have turned to ash. But now, I am willing to give you a chance. Submit to me, and I will give you a chance to continue living." Chinyu lifted a hand. The Goliath sovereign's phantom followed suit. With a loud rumble, the vast strength of the world swept up, its momentum astonishing. The great Tao burning above its head became even more intense, emitting a powerful aura that suppressed the world. "Make your choice. Submit to me or die here. This will be your final chance." The golden-winged rock that was smashed deep into the ground revealed a struggling look in its eyes. Its noble bloodline and its own dignity made it unwilling to bow its head. But now, the strength of the ancient race within its body was constantly being plundered away. It could already feel the thick taste of death, cold and decaying. It instinctively felt fear and despair. It would really die. At this time, the roars of giant beasts echoed out. As they fell to the ground under the threat of death, they chose to lower their heads without hesitation. Giant beasts struggled to crawl on the ground. They faced Chinyu, expressing their awe and submission. But they only accounted for less than half of the giant beasts in front of him. The other giant beasts remained silent, waiting. Chinyu's eyes fell on the golden-winged rock, cold and indifferent. The golden-winged rock stared at him for several breaths of time. Finally, it lowered its head and emitted a deep cry. The other giant beasts also expressed their submission. Chinyu stepped forwards and arrived in front of the cosmic Seacross bell. The great purple dragon that circled around it lowered its head in awe. He turned and looked down at the earth. The strength of the ancient race was stolen by you, but today I will bestow this strength upon you. From this day forth, you are all a part of the ancient race, my most powerful subordinates. Bang! Within the cosmic Seacross bell, the gathered pool shattered. Endless golden fog flew out, howling into the earth. The great beasts breathed it in through their noses and mouths, immediately restoring their spirits. In fact, their auras were even stronger than before. This was because their current strength was no longer stolen. Rather, it was rightfully bestowed upon them. It was a strength that truly belonged to them. The golden winged rock revealed a complex look, but it knew that after fusing with the strength of the ancient race, it would never be able to defy Qin Yu's will. It prostrated itself on the ground and said in a low voice, "Greetings, king of the ancient race!" Roar, roar, countless giant beasts roared. Bang! At this moment, Qin Yu could clearly feel a massive amount of Joss flame power gathering towards him. The speed at which it fused into the great Tao rose with it. Chapter 1817. Han Shuisheng was one of the strongest pirates in the coastal waters. He had 2 large ships and more than 300 fugitives under his command. Of course, even though he was a powerful pirate, he didn't have a good life. He only dared to rob the paupers on the surrounding islands, and occasionally loot some small merchant ships. As for the ships of the various large merchant guilds, it wasn't that they didn't dare to, but they were powerless. With their meager strength, they wouldn't be able to swallow the other party's merchant ships. Even if they rushed forward, they would only be sending themselves to the other party's death. It was no different from asking for death. Thus, even with his sovereign realm cultivation, he lived a miserable life. He couldn't even see a woman, and he would often sigh and lament. He regretted his hot-headed decision to become a pirate in the past. As expected, the impulsiveness of youth had to be repaid bit by bit through the hardships of middle age. It was really too miserable. The 2 large ships had been repaired in many places. From afar, they looked mighty and domineering, but up close they looked miserable. They bobbed up and down with the waves. Han Shuisheng, who was lying on the deck to dry salted fish, suddenly opened his eyes. Alert! Reality had proven that sovereign realm cultivation was not just for show. Very quickly, a large ship appeared on the surface of the sea in the distance. The ship's flag was made of black cloth with a perfectly round pearl embroidered on it. It shone brightly under the sunlight. The pearl! Han Shuisheng's expression relaxed, and a smile appeared on his face. Our old friend is here. Prepare some food and wine, and invite the captain of the Pearl on board. I want to have the good drink with my good friend. The crew members around him laughed in low voices. Their faces were burning with excitement as they complied and ran away. The reason was simple. There were hundreds of pirate ships in the coastal waters, and there weren't many women among them. Everyone on the Pearl, from the captain to the most basic sailors, was a woman. It could be said that the Pearl was the ship that pirates hoped to see the most in the boundless sea. They were willing to prepare the most sumptuous dishes and wine every time, hoping to catch up with their friends on the Pearl. The 3 large ships gradually approached, and the deputy in charge of the lookout ran over. "General, something's not right. There's a man on the Pearl." He gritted his teeth, and his face was filled with hatred. It was as if he had seen his father's murder. What? Han Shuisheng's complexion changed as he took the night vision treasure. It was a navigational tool that could pierce through the fog on the sea and observe clearly. It was a good item that he had obtained from a small merchant ship not long ago. Sure enough, he really did see a man on the deck of the Pearl. More importantly, he was very young and very handsome. Damn it! Han Shuisheng coldly sneered. That bitch Black Pearl, what did she say to me before? She said that only women were allowed on her ship and that men were not allowed to take a single step on it. What is this now? Hee hee. Let them come closer. Since this boy can board the ship, then us brothers can also board. I want to see what this Black Pearl woman can say. Soon, the two ships merged together. Han Shuishing smiled as if he were reunited with an old friend. Black Pearl, it's been a few years since we last met. You're still as beautiful as ever. Standing on the deck, Black Pearl was a tall and beautiful woman. Although there was a shallow scar on the left side of her face, it didn't ruin her beauty. Rather, it made her seem even more cruel and seductive, causing one's heart to race. Now, when she heard Han Shuishing's words, she only glanced at him and didn't respond at all. This caused the pirates on the other ship to feel as if they had lost all face. They loudly shouted and waved the weapons in their hands. Han Shuishing's complexion darkened, but he didn't act impulsively. He looked at the young man sitting on the chair and slowly said, "Black Pearl, it seems that the weather today isn't good. It isn't suitable for us to sit down and drink together. Then we will part ways here. We will meet again in the boundless sea." The man sitting on the chair stood up. The sea breeze ruffled his robes. He calmly looked at them and said, "Starting from today, you have been taken in. You can choose to resist, but this will be your fate." He lifted a hand and punched out. Bang! The sea surface violently exploded and a terrifying strength spread outwards. Terrifying waves rose up, causing the three ships to turn into shaky dinghies on the verge of collapse. Even though the ship's stabilizing spell formation had been activated, Han Shuishing's face still instantly turned pale. Just a casual punch was able to create such a terrifying scene. If that punch had been aimed at them, the entire ship would have been smashed into smithereens. These people, of course, would also become a group of dead ghosts. With a thud, Han Shuishing knelt on the deck. "Greetings, Grand General." Pirates at sea usually called themselves generals. Only true great pirates could be called great generals. This was an honorific title among pirates. Qin Yu nodded non-committally. He wasn't surprised by today's smooth sailing. These were pirates, after all. It was normal for them to be spineless. Moreover, as long as their brains weren't damaged, then it was only natural for them to be like this. I knew what to choose. Black Pearl, I'll leave this to you. I'm going to rest. If there's nothing important, don't disturb me. Yes. The Black Pearl respectfully bowed, but there was a hint of resentment in her eyes. The Great One's cultivation was heaven-reaching, deep and immeasurable. Everything about him was perfect, but the only bad thing was that he was too cold, not understanding at all. In the past, she had climbed into his bed, but was still dragged off and thrown outside. If she hadn't experienced this herself, she wouldn't have believed it. She was a flower of the sea. Han Shuishing crawled up and wiped away a cold sweat. He leapt onto the ship and said, "Pearl, the Grand General is— Get away from me!" The Black Pearl glared at him. She sneered, "What Grand General? Our Lord is the Sea King. Remember, very soon, everyone in the sea region will be taken in and serve under His Excellency." Han Shuishing's eyes widened. "Sea King!" He screamed out loud, his voice filled with fear. He glared at the Black Pearl as if she were a madman. He looked in the direction Qin left in. He lowered his voice and roared, "You smelly woman, have you gone insane? The title of Sea King already has an owner. Do you want to provoke the dignity of His Majesty, the Sea King? That is simply seeking death." Before, it was said that in the coastal region, there were many small and large islands. There were many country bumpkins living on these islands, living a miserable life without much profit. But there were always exceptions. For instance, the Sea King Island that was close to the deep sea region. This was an island that was comparable to a province, and it was also rich in resources. It was a pearl in this terrifying sea region. The Sea King was the master of this island, or, to be more precise, any pirate that could seize this island would automatically obtain the title of Sea King. The current Sea King had successfully seized this position 3,000 years ago. He was publicly recognized as the strongest powerhouse in the entire sea region. True sovereign realm. That's right, a pirate had actually broken into the true sovereign realm. Moreover, he hadn't accepted the recruitment of the East Sea nation and instead chose to remain at sea. This was simply inconceivable. From then on, for the next 3,000 years, the pirates of the sea region, large and small, constantly fought with each other. But no one dared to provoke the Sea King's position. The Black Pearl's eyes were ice cold. Han Shuisheng, let me remind you, from now on, you have already worshipped His Majesty the Sea King. If you say anything like that again, that is rebelling against His Majesty the Sea King, that is an unforgivable crime. She sneered again and again. I don't mind personally cutting off your head. Do you hear me? Han Shuisheng's pupils shrank. They were both people who made a living at sea and had interacted with each other countless times over the years. He was well aware of just how cruel and ruthless the Black Pearl was. If she could say something like that, she would definitely do it. He squeezed out a smile and said, I was panicking for a moment and made a slip of the tongue. Pearl, don't report me. I, Han Shuisheng, am well aware of the rules of our sea. Since I have already worshipped the new Sea King, I will definitely abide by my place and pledge my life to serve His Majesty, the Sea King. The Black Pearl swept her eyes over him. That's for the best. But let me remind you one last time. Do not seek death. His Majesty, the Sea King's strength is not something you can imagine. She turned and left. At the same time, she ordered her subordinates to take control of Han Shuisheng's 2 ships and have them follow behind the Black Pearl. Han Shuisheng returned to his ship. His complexion was gloomy and his eyes were filled with anger. That crazy woman. She had to be insane. Although he had displayed an incomparably formidable strength in that punch, in Han Shuisheng's opinion, there was no chance of success if he wanted to challenge the Sea King. He would only be seeking death. True sovereign. That was a true sovereign, a great character that stood at the peak of the heavens. No, I can't go crazy with them. I have to think of a way to escape and find a way to survive. The only thing that comforted Han Shuisheng was that they only had 3 ships right now. There was still a great disparity between them and challenging the Sea King's authority. The Sea King would definitely roam the sea and continue to accumulate strength in secret. This would give Han Shuisheng a chance to escape. He was an excellent swimmer, and he also cultivated a fierce water supernatural art. As long as he had a chance to dive deep into the sea, no one would be able to find him. As for these 2 ships and the people on them, they could only rely on the fates of the heavens. And then perhaps he could report this matter to the Sea King Island ahead of time, and perhaps he could even earn some merit. If the Sea King took a liking to him and recruited him to work for the Sea King Island, that would truly be a blessing. But soon, Han Shuisheng discovered a terrifying fact that left his entire body cold, as if he had fallen into an icy lake. The 3 ships were heading straight into the depths of the sea, and the direction they were heading in was the direction of the Sea King Island. This was madness. This was madness. If they wanted to directly attack the Sea King Island with just 3 ships and less than 1,000 pirates in total, this was no different from striking a stone with an egg. Han Shuisheng ran out to find the Black Pearl and changed his words. But his meaning was clear. With their current strength, the Sea King Island would have no chance of victory. Wang Dao had no chance of winning at all. He could only court death. Pearl, you must persuade His Majesty the Sea King. His grand ambitions cannot be accomplished overnight. Only by patiently waiting and accumulating will he be able to succeed. We cannot go to the Sea King Island right now. We absolutely cannot go. He had a pained expression. The Black Pearl sneered. Han Shuisheng, before you came, we had already determined the path. Han Shuisheng was stunned for a moment before he reacted. The Pearl had been prepared to go directly to the Sea King Island from the very beginning. It was just that they were unlucky and took the initiative to run into them. After realizing this, he wished he could raise his hand and slap himself in the face. Why didn't you just turn around and run away? You actually took the initiative to come forward and let others bully you. He took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. Black Pearl, don't blame me for not warning you. The Sea King is a true emperor. He is a super expert that even the East Sea nation does not dare to provoke. They can only acquiesce in his rule of the sea. If you dare to bring people to the Sea King Island, you will only be courting death. A trace of fear flashed in the Black Pearl's eyes. She thought of the Sea King's strength, but she quickly calmed down. Her eyes were resolute. I believe in our Sea King. He will definitely be the final victor. What bewitching potion did this *TCH drink? Could it be that she has been charmed by that gigolo? No, I must quickly escape. If they want to die, then let them. I will not accompany them to their deaths. With a gloomy face, Han Shuisheng returned to his ship. He ordered his subordinates to prepare for the upcoming battle with the Pearl. The subordinates on the ship all revealed looks of fear. The impression left in their hearts by that one punch was far too deep. Humph! Let me tell you, the people on the Pearl are going to the Sea King Island to challenge the Sea King's position. I don't think I need to explain the Sea King's methods, right? Think about it carefully. Do you want to rebel against me and run away, or do you want to follow the Pearl to your deaths? Han Shuisheng roared in a low voice. The surrounding crew members' complexions changed, revealing looks of horror. Challenging the Sea King, that was suicide. General, I'll rebel against you. Dying now is better than falling into the Sea King's hands and being refined into a puppet that is neither human nor ghost. How about we just run away? Yes. Everyone jump into the sea. Let's see how many we can survive. Everyone shouted out loud. At this time, the dim candlelight in the cabin suddenly came to a stop. A calm voice echoed in their ears. Although I don't want to hear what you're saying right now, your movements are far too loud. Qin, you reached out a hand and pressed down. The cabin door turned to dust. He walked in, and his eyes swept over everyone that had been gathered here. You want to run away? Fine. I will give you a chance to choose again. If anyone wants to leave, then step forward. Everyone's eyes widened. They were so pitiful that they couldn't even speak a single word, much less move. Very good. It seems you've all thought things through. Then, don't do anything like this again. Otherwise, I really will have to kill you. Qin, you faintly smiled and turned to leave. Schwa! Everyone regained their freedom. Their eyes widened, filled with shock and anger. A single thought tumbled through their hearts. How could this be? How could this be? Han Shuisheng's face was ashen and despair filled his eyes. He looked at everyone and bitterly smiled. Everyone, we are dead. Run away? That was impossible. Just the strength that Qin Yu had displayed just now was enough to easily kill all of them. Let me ask you, if your every move was being sensed by others and there was such a great disparity in strength, how could you possibly escape? On this day, on the two ships, all the crewmen were deathly pale and their eyes were filled with fear. They sailed at full speed. 2 days later, they arrived at Sea King Island. 3 ships that hadn't announced ahead of time approached, immediately drawing a warning. Whoosh, whoosh. With the sound of breaking air, 2 black-robed cultivators landed on the Pearl at the front. How bold of you to dare intrude into Sea King Island's territory. Follow us to the island and beg for forgiveness from Lord Sea King. One of them looked at Black Pearl, and a burning heat flashed in his eyes. This woman isn't bad. If she becomes my concubine, she might be able to avoid punishment. At this time, space suddenly shook. It was like a giant mouth had opened wide and swallowed the 2 people. Dark red blood bloomed in the air before vanishing from sight. Qin, you stepped onto the deck and looked at the massive Sea King Island in the distance. Continue forward. Behind him, Han Shuisheng, who had been standing on the deck, fell to the ground. His body twitched as sweat streamed down his body. It was over. It was completely over. All of them would die on Sea King Island. No, their fates would likely be even more terrifying than death. Chapter 1818. A banquet was being held in a huge hall on the Sea King Island. The representatives of the 4 large chambers of commerce of the East Sea Nation, as well as the Minister of Maritime Affairs, were all present at the banquet. Everyone toasted each other and spoke cordially, giving the Sea King sufficient respect. Today, the East Sea Nation took the lead and led the Chambers of Commerce to continue negotiating the contract with the Sea King Island. This was a very necessary and important matter that no one could skip over, unless they were prepared to continue seeking benefits in this sea. For the Chambers of Commerce of the East Sea Nation, the threat of the so-called pirate admiral was nothing. They could deal with it, and the Sea King Island was the key. Without the permission of the Ocean King, no merchant ship would be able to sail safely in this vast sea. After several rounds of negotiations, the matter came to an end. Although the Sea King's appetite was larger than in previous years, it was still within the range of the Chambers of Commerce. After all, this vast and boundless sea contained countless riches, which contributed a large portion of their profits. The Minister of Maritime Affairs stood up with a warm smile and raised his glass. "Honorable Sea King, the agreement between you and our nation will take effect today and continue for 300 years. I wish you a happy cooperation. In addition, please allow me to say that you are truly a benevolent and kind expert. The East Sea Nation is willing to be friends with the Sea King Island forever." The Sea King was not mighty. On the contrary, he was thin and dark-skinned, a typical image of a native of the island. The only distinguishing feature that made him an expert not to be trifled with was his eyes, which glowed with divine light when he opened and closed them. He raised his glass with a smile on his face. To be able to make the envoy of the East Sea Nation bow his head and respect him, the name of the Sea King would spread even further. He would truly become the ruler of this sea. At this moment, a few people rushed in from outside the hall, all of them looking flustered. "Your Excellency, the Pearl, the Black Death, and their escort ships are breaking into the dock." The Sea King frowned. The cold light in his eyes caused the few people to kneel on the ground with a thud, sweating profusely. "Useless things. Trespassing on the Sea King Island is a crime punishable by death. Since they're courting death, I'll kill them all and toss their corpses into the sea. My little darling will be very satisfied. We'll have extra food today." However, the Sea King's frown deepened as he looked at his subordinate, who was paralyzed on the ground and trembling all over. With a thought, the entire Sea King Island and the surrounding sea region appeared within his range of perception. His expression darkened. "How dare you!" The Sea King roared angrily and smashed the long table with his palm. "How dare they come to the Sea King Island and act so presumptuously? I will personally send them to hell. Schwa!" He took a step forward and disappeared. Before the Sea King received the report, the waters around the Pearl had already been dyed red with blood. Countless corpses of humans and beasts floated in the water. They were all subordinates of the Sea King Island, but they could not stop the Pearl from advancing. All the people who rushed over didn't even have the chance to touch the deck. The moment they got close to the Pearl, they were killed on the spot. The eyes of the heads floating in the water were wide open, filled with fear and disbelief. The Black Pearl lowered her head. She glanced at Qin Yu's back from the corner of her eyes. Her eyes were blurry and filled with worship, but also a bit of fear and awe. She had always been well aware that Qin Yu possessed an incomparably formidable strength. When the Pearl fell into a whirlpool in the sea, just as it was about to be destroyed, he had flicked his sleeves and scattered the whirlpool. It was because of this that she was willing to attach herself to Qin Yu, respectfully calling him the new Sea King and obeying his every will. But today, the Black Pearl could see that beneath Qin Yu's calm exterior was a cold and unyielding heart. He was like a reaper of life that had emerged from hell. Any living being that tried to stop him would be exterminated without hesitation. From beginning to end, his complexion didn't change at all. His eyes were cold and indifferent, leaving one's heart racing. Suddenly, a feeling of palpitation exploded out. Black Pearl's expression changed greatly, and she jerked her head up to look forward. The surging sea suddenly calmed down. It was like an incomparably huge blue mirror, clearly reflecting the sky above. Then space suddenly exploded and a terrifying strength erupted, shattering this mirror that had existed for a brief moment. The surface of the sea exploded, billions of waves splashing outwards. Every drop of water contained a terrifying strength that could pierce through mountains as it shot out in all directions. The Pearl and the Black Death were both within range of the attack. The Black Pearl and Han Shuixing's complexions instantly paled. All the cultivators on the ship stared with wide eyes, seeing the overwhelming waves crashing down on them. Endless fear and despair gushed out from them. Hum! The cry of a sword echoed out. All of the sweeping waves froze for a brief moment before exploding, turning into mist that scattered away, vanishing. In the blink of an eye, the monstrous killing potential turned into a harmless fog that covered the entire sea region. Qin looked up. At this time, his eyes pierced through the fog and locked onto the descending Sea King. At this moment, the Sea King, who was threatening to kill everyone with a single blow and defend his authority, suddenly had a drastic change in his expression. He felt an unprecedented threat that was cold and terrifying. It was as if the world before his eyes had darkened and turned completely colorless. A thick aura of death submerged him. Every hair on his body screamed out in panic. Run! Just as fear and stiffness appeared on the Sea King's dark face, he turned and fled without hesitation. With his true sovereign realm cultivation, he could reach the East Sea nation with a single thought. With just a single step, he could enter it. His reaction was already extremely fast. Space shook, and he was about to swallow up the Sea King's figure. But at this time, there was a dull thud that echoed in his ears. It wasn't loud, but it caused the Sea King to freeze in place. He looked down at the sword point that had pierced through his back and emerged from his chest. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Bang! Space shattered. Like a great mouth, the purple world swallowed the Sea King's corpse. In the next moment, Qin Yu also vanished from sight. After killing a true sovereign, Qin Yu certainly couldn't waste it. Swallowing the essence of his great Tao could still help him become stronger. As for the problem of his foundation being unstable by swallowing his great Tao, this wasn't a problem at all for Qin Yu, who had stepped onto the Joss Flame, Great Tao. As the Joss Flames fused into him, his Great Tao was gradually restored, becoming more stable and powerful. And once the power of Joss Flames was truly ignited, it would form a giant furnace that would burn and temper the Great Tao. It would be enough to help Qin Yu's Great Tao eliminate all hidden dangers and become unprecedentedly powerful. Ah! The Sea King is dead. On Sea King Island, a cultivator who was temporarily serving as the Sea King and entertaining guests suddenly screamed out, fear on his face. In the next moment, there was a dull thud as this person's head exploded and he fell to the ground like a corpse. And this was not an isolated case. Today, in the Ocean King Palace, bang, 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 bang were incessant like the sound of ripe persimmons falling to the ground. Headless corpses wildly spewed out blood as they miserably fell to the ground. As their heads exploded, so did their souls. These people were all trusted aides of the Sea King. When they obtained status and strength, they were also forced to sign a contract with the Sea King. Their lives and deaths were in the hands of the Sea King, so when the Sea King was killed, they also died. The Minister of Affairs suddenly stood up, his eyes cloudy. Let's go out and take a look. Everyone hurriedly stood up and rushed out of the hall. What they saw was the sea in front of them. There was an extremely thick fog that obscured their line of sight, making it impossible to see what was happening within. And in the divine sense, there wasn't any powerful aura. Could it be that the person who killed the Sea King had died together with him? The eyes of the Minister of Affairs and the representatives of the various merchant associations lit up with joy. If this was true, then it would be incomparably wonderful. The damned Sea King Island should have been massacred a long time ago. Every year, They risked their lives to transport goods across the dangerous sea. In the end, 20 to 30% of their profits were taken away by the Sea King Island. Over the years, this was an astronomical figure that couldn't be calculated. Once the Sea King's throne was vacant, the East Sea Nation could directly take action and forcefully suppress the sea region. They would tear those damned pirates to shreds and allow the dynasty's merchant ships to travel the sea unimpeded. This would inevitably bring them even more wealth. The Minister of Affairs took a deep breath. Everyone, his low voice was filled with excitement and joy. As long as he could smoothly accomplish this, it would be a great merit. It would be enough for him to be promoted to a higher position and even obtain higher-level cultivation methods to enhance his own boundary. But unfortunately, he only managed to say 2 words before it was as if a giant invisible hand had gripped his neck and he couldn't spit out any more words. The fog in front of him shook and Chin Yu stepped out. His expression was calm and indifferent, but deep within his eyes there was a faint and deep crimson circle. As his eyes fell on everyone present, they froze where they stood. Fear surged out from the depths of their hearts, sweeping through their bodies like a tide, as if all the blood in their bodies would freeze. Starting from today, I am the new Sea King. Whoever dares to resist, this will be their fate. Chin Yu lifted a hand and pointed. The minister's eyes widened, revealing a look of panic. He wanted to roar out loud. I only had a thought. I didn't do anything at all. You can't. Bang! The Minister of Affairs blew up on the spot, turning into countless pieces of broken bones and flesh. His blood sprayed everywhere as he vanished. The thick smell of blood filled the air, causing the representatives of the various merchant associations to nearly collapse on the spot. The crimson light in the depths of Chin Yu's eyes swept over all of them. Now all of you can leave. Take my will with you. Tell the East Sea Nation that the Sea King Island demands half of its territory and its people. Otherwise, the East Sea Nation will have to withstand the subjugation of the Sea King Island. I will step into the imperial capital and personally kill the emperor. I will take the heads of all 10 generations of the royal family as my revenge. He flicked his sleeves, and the representatives of the various merchant associations were sent flying away, falling deep into the sea. As for what methods these people would use to escape back to the East Sea Nation alive, that wasn't something Chin Yu needed to consider. Strong winds rolled up, blowing away the fog and revealing Chin Yu's figure standing on the shore. He wasn't tall or imposing, but at this moment, everyone felt an endless pressure, as if he were a towering mountain that pierced into the heavens. Black Pearl's eyes were wet. She respectfully prostrated herself on the ground. As she felt a bit wet, she swore that she would obtain the Sea King. Han Shuisheng was dumbfounded. He looked at the scene in front of him. Unable to regain his composure, it ended like this. The incomparably powerful Sea King. The Sea King that deterred the entire sea region. The Sea King that ruled over all life in the sea, had died. Of course, he had died. Otherwise, it was impossible for Chin Yu to stand on the Sea King Island unscathed. He was well aware of this, but for a time he found it hard to accept. But without a doubt, this was the truth. With a shudder, Han Shuisheng knelt on the ground and shouted with all his might, "Greetings, Your Majesty, the Sea King!" Soon, shouts erupted from the Black Death and the Pearl and gradually spread to the Sea King Island. Everyone knelt on the ground, expressing their respect and awe for the new Sea King. In the world of pirates, the strong always preyed on the weak. They had no loyalty to the previous Sea King. Chin Yu's expression was calm as he looked at the end of the sea region. That was where the headquarters of the human cultivators were located. Becoming the new Sea King and provoking a war with the East Sea Nation was Chin Yu's way of finding the White Jade Capital. This was because, even in the human world, the Holy Land White Jade Capital was a legendary place that couldn't be touched. There were no records of it, nor was there any precise method to find its existence. Chin Yu didn't have much time to waste on searching, so he chose the fastest and most effective method. The East Sea nation was provoked by the Sea King Island, so they were bound to respond. As long as he caused a ruckus that nearly went out of control, the White Jade capital would be dragged in. And what Chenyu was waiting for was for the people of the White Jade capital to appear on their own. Recently, a sensational piece of news spread through the East Sea nation. The Sea King Island had a new master, and the new Sea King had issued a warning to the East Sea nation, demanding that they cede half of their territory and people. Otherwise, he would start a war. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. In the imperial palace of the East Sea nation, the East Sea Emperor's face was ashen. His roar nearly overturned the hall. Arrogant, impudent, I have decided to summon the powerhouses of the Empire to attack the Sea King Island and kill the new Sea King to defend the dignity of the Empire. Facing the furious Emperor, no one dared to dissuade him. Ceding territory and plundering people was beyond the bottom line that the East Sea nation could bear. Your Majesty, even a lion must use its full strength to capture a rabbit. Since you have decided to personally take action, then you must invite all the powerhouses of the East Sea nation to help your Majesty in battle, a minister said as he knelt on the ground. The East Sea Emperor nodded. I have already made my preparations. The door to the hall opened and a tall figure walked out. He had nothing on him and was bare-handed, but just by standing there he was like a divine needle that could calm the sea and suppress everything. War Emperor Yen Tai. His Excellency War Emperor is here. That's great. Soon after, another person walked out. It was a woman. Her long dress fluttered in the wind, and she carried a long sword on her back. Her face was dreamy and ethereal, and if one looked at her, one would be able to see thousands of different appearances. Each face was extremely beautiful. Illusion God, Sword Emperor. A minister was extremely excited. 2 true emperors of the East Sea nation will help your Majesty at the same time. We will definitely win this battle. Kill the Sea King and defend the dignity of the East Sea Empire. This will let all the countries in the world know that although the East Sea nation is small, we also have powerhouses supporting us. War Emperor Yen Tai and Illusion God, Sword Emperor cupped their hands. Your Majesty, the East Sea Emperor laughed. With the help of 2 true emperors, we will conquer the Sea King Island. He stood up. Now, let's descend together and kill the new Sea King. Very well. Very well. The East Sea Emperor took a step forward. War Emperor Yen Tai and Illusion God, Sword Emperor followed him and disappeared. In the hall, the ministers were extremely excited. After the War Emperor and Illusion God, Sword Emperor became famous, they had gone to other powerful countries to settle down. They did not expect that they would return today to help the East Sea Empire. With 2 true emperors and the divine power of His Majesty, after the Sea King Island was suppressed, all the countries in the world would change their impression of the East Sea nation.